Hello everyone. We hope you're doing well. We're doing great, and we truly appreciate your ongoing support. We'd like to briefly address some comments regarding our audiobook series. Rest assured, progress is ongoing. That said, your feedback is vital. If there's a novel you particularly enjoy and want to hear more of, please let us know in the comments. Each chapter requires a financial investment, so we can only continue series that receive strong audience interest. Although we retain core names and plot lines, we make significant editorial changes to enhance clarity, pacing, and immersion. These are not simple recitations. We work hard to deliver a polished, thoughtful listening experience. Without sufficient feedback or engagement, we may need to discontinue a series. So if you're enjoying something, don't stay silent. Your input truly matters. Note, our default audio speed is 3x. If that's too fast, let us know. We're happy to adjust it. Interested in early access to unreleased audiobooks? Visit our Patreon. You'll get to experience new content before it reaches YouTube. Just to clarify, I'm a fan like you. I've purchased these novels and adapted them with care, while respecting all rights and guidelines. For updates, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: Shattered Innocence transmigrated into a novel as an extra. Transmigrating over 10,000 years late, I was forced to become a mighty presence. I, the celestial dragon, rule the heavens through the double gate, reigning supreme in countless worlds with peace taming, Tower of God sequence strength, cultivation when you take things to the extreme. Naruto is Uchiha with cyst. WTF, the centuries-old ancestor in our family take concubine again. Plus 18, Ichi, reincarnated in Bleach as a wizard. Thanks for listening and happy listening. Chapter 1, What Vice Captain? I'm just logistics. See Circle Calendar 1520, East Blue, 153rd Marine Branch Base. Two figures were perched atop the wall surrounding the Marine base, their gazes fixed on the training ground below, where a battered-looking man was tied to a cross. Reiner, is he the three-sword-style swordsman you mentioned? Luffy glanced at the man beside him. The man had short golden hair and wore a sky-blue shirt with rolled-up sleeves, paired with beige trousers, looking very much like a sharp office worker. Green hair, 3 golden earrings. Reiner carefully studied the figure in the training ground for a moment. That's him, all right. Let's go. Francis Reiner. He had transmigrated into the One Piece world a year ago and met Luffy in Fuusha village. Today was their first day setting sail. Reiner had brought Luffy straight to the 153rd branch, his purpose being, naturally, to collect the beginner's bonus, 3-sword Roronoa Zoro. Luffy grinned, pushed off the wall with both hands, and jumped into the base, swaggering straight in. Reiner calmly lit a cigarette and followed behind him. Are you here for me? Zoro had already noticed their arrival, his eyes cold and wary. Who are you people? My name is Luffy. I'm the man who will become the king of the pirates. I came to ask you to be our nakama. Luffy grinned, stating his intentions very directly. As he spoke, he reached out and started trying to untie Zoro himself. Zoro was stunned by this. Were people nowadays always this nonsensical? Are you kidding me? Hey, don't just untie me. Zoro hurriedly tried to stop him. He had let himself be captured voluntarily to save a mother and daughter. He had made a deal with the Marines: if he could survive for a month without food or drink, they wouldn't harm the mother and daughter. They would also let him go. However, Luffy wasn't one to listen to warnings, his hands nimbly working away. Except, it's getting tighter, damn it. Zoro couldn't help but roar as the ropes bit painfully into his wrists. Reiner. Killing off a teammate on the very first day at sea. That would be too ridiculous if word got out. Forget it, Luffy, let me handle this. With a thought from Reiner, a void-like crack appeared in midair, and a grim, pale skeleton holding a dagger stepped out. Zoro was startled by the sudden appearance. What the hell is that thing? I'm a devil fruit user, I can summon undead creatures. Reiner took the skeleton's dagger, gave the ropes a light slash, and they fell away. He then grinned, long story short. Cough cough. We're awesome. Stick with us, and you'll have no problems. Huh? Zoro was completely baffled, his brow furrowed tightly. He didn't know what Reiner was talking about, but he said it with such baffling confidence. Reiner casually stuck the dagger into the skeleton's skull and retracted it, then spoke seriously. I heard about your situation in town when I arrived. You don't really think you can survive a month without food or drink, do you? TCH, None of your business. Zoro scoffed but didn't refute it. In truth, he was already nearing his limit, and it was only the 9th day. Anyway, after today, you'll be wanted soon enough. Either become a pirate, or wait here to die. Reiner dropped his cigarette butt and stamped it out, saying flatly, or, if you don't have any ambitions, you could just find a place to hide. We'll just consider today's trip wasted. If I have to just scrape by to survive, I might as well die here. Zoro spat, rubbing his wrists. I still have important things I need to do. He knew his situation was exactly as Reiner described. Once wanted, even if he didn't call himself a pirate, he'd be treated like one. He still had goals to achieve. Besides, they did save him. Maybe he should just go with them. Thinking this, Zoro's expression turned serious as he met Reiner's eyes. You came prepared, seems like you were set on recruiting me. Are you the captain? No, the captain is him. Reiner gestured with his thumb towards Luffy beside him. Zoro followed his gaze. Luffy was looking at him with a wide grin, his eyes filled with clarity. He doesn't look very reliable? Zoro didn't know why he asked that, just had a strange feeling. He turned back to Reiner. Then are you the vice captain? No, I'm just a logistics member. Reiner waved his hands dismissively, his expression full of refusal. Vice captain? No way. That title sounded way too attention-grabbing, didn't fit his style. He wanted to develop quietly, then amaze everyone. Would people react the same way hearing he was the vice captain versus hearing he was just logistics? He was the type who liked taking cheap shots from the shadows. Nobody understood combat better than him. What, you say that's despicable? Yes. That's me, correct. Logistics member? Zoro looked skeptical. Sounds pretty weak. He was a legendary devil fruit user, but actually wasn't strong. Seeing Zoro's expression, Reiner rejoiced inwardly. Yes. That's it, that's the effect I wanted. If he were to use his powers now, he could easily land a few hits on Zoro instantly. Just then, a group of unwelcome guests arrived on the training ground. Prepare to fire. A rough shout echoed from the distance. The three looked towards the sound. The one shouting was a burly man built like a bear, with a giant axe attached to his arm, the captain of the 153rd branch, Axehand Morgan. Behind Morgan was a large troop of marine soldiers, raising their rifles to aim at them. Seeing this, Luffy quickly spread his arms, shielding the other two. Bang! Bang! Gunshots erupted, and dozens of bullets flew towards them. Watch out! Zoro couldn't help but shout in alarm. However, the next moment, something completely unexpected happened. The bullets hit Luffy and simply dented into his body, stretching the flesh on his back like a pincushion. The next second, all the bullets shot back out, catapulting towards the Marines. What kind of monster is he? Get out of the way! Facing the panicked Marines, Luffy put his hands on his hips and laughed proudly. Shishishi, I ate the gum fruit, I'm a rubber man. Bullets don't work on me. Zoro had a look of utter disbelief. What's going on? He's also a devil. Huh? Where'd he go? Before he could finish, he realized Reiner had disappeared sometime during the commotion. Damn it, the Marines took my swords. Feeling the empty space at his waist, Zoro scowled. Meanwhile, Morgan stared grimly at Luffy. He had been the base commander for 3 years, he wasn't entirely clueless. He immediately roared at his men, don't panic. Try using swords. Everyone, attack. Even if swords didn't work, they could just swarm and pin him down. Yes, sir. Receiving Morgan's command, the Marines drew their swords and charged, engaging Luffy in a melee. Zoro also jumped in, taking down several Marines barehanded before snatching swords and starting to display his astonishing skill. Watching the two figures fighting like wild beasts in the training ground, Morgan frowned deeply. I'll let my men wear them down first, then I'll launch a sneak attack when the time is right. What a coincidence. Reiner was thinking the exact same thing. Just then, a sneaky figure suddenly appeared behind Morgan. Somehow, Reiner had stealthily circled around and was now quietly creeping up on Morgan. Click clack. Suddenly, the sound of a gun being cocked rang out. Morgan jumped, a chill running down his spine. With a sense of foreboding, he whipped his head around. He saw a golden-haired man pointing a gun straight at him. Staring down the dark barrel, Morgan was terrified. Eat shit, Captain. Wait, bang. Reiner pulled the trigger without any hesitation, watching mockingly as Morgan fell into a pool of blood. Can't wait, Captain. What if there's a plot twist? He said it himself, nobody understands combat better than him. He walked over, placed his hand on Morgan's body, and a surge of blue flame erupted from his palm, covering the corpse. After about 30 seconds, the flame flowed back into his hand, coalescing into a single, flickering spark. Chapter 2. Katana Devil? What the, so weak? All that size for nothing. Reiner sighed, looking disappointedly at the flame in his hand. I thought I could collect an elite mob, but damn, just a little piece of trash. Reiner's devil fruit was the zone, human fruit, mythical model, Necrolord. Besides enhancing his physical abilities and providing 3 transformation stages, it allowed him to acquire others' body templates through contact, using them to create undead beings. The undead stats were identical to the template, and while they couldn't inherit devil fruit abilities, they retained certain characteristics and techniques. Unfortunately, the stronger the target, the longer the collection process took, and he couldn't collect templates from those significantly stronger than himself. Otherwise, before setting sail, he would have definitely whipped up an immortal Gar Plus. Guess I'll wait for Zoro's template. Been craving his body for a long time. Reiner refocused his thoughts. Seeing that no one at the training ground seemed to have noticed what happened, he turned and walked into the marine base building. After wandering around and retrieving Zoro's swords, he called Luffy and Zoro, and they made their escape. Inside a tavern in town. Burp, yeah, lasting a month was definitely too much to ask. Speaking of which, are you both devil fruit users? Zoro leaned back on the sofa after finishing his meal, chewing on a toothpick as he asked. Luffy stretched his cheek and grinned proudly, that's right. I ate the gum fruit, I'm a rubber man. Okay, that one's relatively easy to understand. Zoro nodded, then turned his gaze to Reiner. Your ability seems a bit creepy, though? It's not that complicated, really. Reiner tapped the ash off his cigarette, stood up, and placed a hand on Zoro's shoulder. Don't move for a second. As he spoke, an azure flame emerged from his palm and covered Zoro's entire body. What is this? Zoro was startled and instinctively tried to pull away, but realizing the flames had no heat, he calmed down. After about 3 minutes, the blue flame receded back into Reiner's hand, forming a dancing spark. His overall stats are actually comparable to Luffy's. And his arm strength is even higher. Reiner marveled at the information contained within the flame. But then he reasoned it out. Zoro had trained rigorously since childhood, so it made sense his physical condition was close to Luffy's. He couldn't help but give Zoro another look. Truly a swordsman, he thought. That terrifying wrist strength. In the East Blue, probably only Arlong could match it. Reiner already had plans for Zoro's template. With a thought, the void crack reappeared. A black figure slowly stepped out from the void. It stood just over 2 meters tall, powerfully built, wearing a black hat, a black suit, and a black trench coat draped over it. If you didn't look at the head, it cut a mysterious and handsome figure in black. However, hidden beneath the hat was a ferocious and terrifying face with a gaping maw full of sharp teeth. A long sword pierced through its forehead, jutting forward. Both its hands were also long swords, the tips glinting coldly as they dragged on the ground. There were no hilts, instead, the swords merged directly into its arms. That's right. Reiner had modeled this after the Katana Devil from Chainsaw Man. Although only the appearance was similar, Zoro happened to use a 3-sword style, making the template's compatibility super high. What the hell is that thing? Zoro exclaimed upon seeing the Katana Devil. Wait a second, don't tell me you just made that thing out of me somehow. Oh ha ha ha, so cool. Luffy shouted excitedly, eyes sparkling. This was the reason Luffy had been so fervently inviting Reiner onto his crew ever since he first witnessed Reiner's devil fruit powers back then. Who knows how his brain developed, but the weirder something was, the more attracted he was to it. That's right. Reiner admitted directly. I'm a devil fruit user. By doing what I just did, I can acquire someone's physical data and use it to create undead. His ability could create all sorts of undead, but they couldn't deviate too much from the template's characteristics. Using a dog's template to create a humanoid skeleton would result in something that couldn't even stand properly. Creating undead based on a matching template maximized their potential strength. Reiner retracted the Katana Devil. Luffy, where are we headed next? I don't know. Luffy declared it without a hint of shame, grinning broadly. Why don't you decide, Reiner? I don't know any places anyway. Reiner. Zoro. Is this captain really reliable? Zoro muttered under his breath, speechless. Reiner, however, remembered from the original story that Luffy would next go to the town where Buggy's base was, meeting Nami there, but he didn't know the town's name. Well, just point to one on here. Reiner spread out a map and pointed to a spot. We are here right now. Just pick any place nearby, and that'll be our course. Reiner decided to rely on Luffy's miracle luck. If they didn't run into Nami, they'd just head straight for Kokoyasi village later. Zoro? Zoro slammed his hand on the table, utterly shocked. Hold on. Your logistics role doesn't seem quite right either, does it? Reiner chuckled dismissively. Don't get so jumpy. There's nothing wrong with letting the captain decide the route. Normally, that would be true. Zoro paused. But are you guys normal? Reiner awkwardly took back the map and looked where Luffy's finger had landed. Syrup Village, huh? Reiner pondered for a moment, vaguely recalling that this was Usopp's hometown. Perfect, he could go collect Kuro's template. Soon, the trio, having eaten and drunk their fill, left the restaurant and headed to the port. This is the ship you mentioned? Yeah, what's wrong? A pirate ship. Zoro looked at the small sailboat moored at the dock, tied to a wooden post with rope. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. He briefly contemplated the feasibility of cutting Luffy down right now, then sighed. Ah well, I should have seen this coming. Truthfully, this was already much better than the tiny raft Luffy had originally planned to use. At least it had a cabin for shelter from wind and rain. Reiner had saved up money to buy even this. Being logistics on Luffy's crew really meant being both a father and a mother. Meanwhile, in Orange Town, where the buggy pirates were stationed, a chase was unfolding in the streets. Stop, damn it. You little thief. Don't run. A young woman with short orange hair, a delicate face, and a shapely figure taunted them as she ran. Catch me if you can, idiots. The young woman's name was Nami, a thief specializing in robbing pirates. Today, she had infiltrated Buggy's base and stolen his map of the Grand Line. The pirates chasing her were Buggy's subordinates. They were relatively lucky to have found Nami first. Catching her would be a great achievement. But, damn it. How can she run so fast? If we don't catch her, the captain's gonna be furious. Seeing the young woman slowly increase the distance between them, the pirates grew increasingly anxious. That sea chart was a treasure highly valued by their captain. If they failed this mission, they would definitely end up as target practice for his special cannonballs. Damn it, stop right there. Chasing her all the way to the port, the pirates could only watch helplessly as Nami jumped onto a small boat and slowly sailed away from the coast. Bye-bye. Nami waved cheekily back at the port, maximizing their frustration. Watching Nami gradually disappear over the horizon, the pirates' faces filled with despair. We're totally screwed. It's over. Chapter 3, Nami. White clouds drifted leisurely across the azure sky. A small wooden boat floated on the calm, sapphire surface of the sea. Luffy sat at the bow, while Zoro sat leaning against the railing. We'll need to find a navigator later on, Reiner remarked idly, lying on the deck and gazing up at the sky, bored. Luffy paused upon hearing this. What's a navigator? Zoro. A navigator is someone who guides the ship, Reiner explained to Luffy. It's very dangerous to encounter bad weather on the sea. We need someone who understands navigation. This was a serious matter. The Grand Line was notorious for its bizarre climates and ever-changing sea conditions. Even in the East Blue, getting caught in a major storm meant almost certain death. Even someone as strong as Shiki couldn't defy the power of nature. After a while, they suddenly heard shouting from afar. Speak of the devil. Looking towards the sound, they saw a small boat heading their way, an orange-haired young woman on deck paddling frantically. She was being pursued by a pirate ship flying a black cat flag. The pirate ship had a giant black cat head as its figurehead. Numerous pirates stood on its deck, yelling angrily at the small boat ahead. Damn it! How dare she steal our treasure? Catch her! The person being chased was none other than Nami. After stealing the sea chart from Buggy and escaping, she had coincidentally run into the Black Cat pirates at sea. Being a thief who specialized in robbing pirates, Nami couldn't resist sneaking aboard their ship to pilfer some treasure. Just as she was about to slip away, she was unexpectedly discovered. Why would someone walk backwards, damn it? Nami roared inwardly in frustration. She had been so close to escaping. Hiding in a corner, she waited for someone to pass, planning to sneak off the ship behind them. But that person turned out to be walking backwards. Nami dashed out from her corner and ran right into him. On the pirate ship, Django heard Nami's distant cry and smirked smugly. That's my dance step. Didn't it completely captivate you? Captivate my foot. Nami yelled back, paddling with all her might. Suddenly spotting the small boat ahead, joy sparked in her heart, and she immediately shouted towards it, "Help me!" A plea for help? No, her main tactic was to divert the disaster onto others. What do you think? Should we step in? Zoro asked Luffy. Luffy stood at the bow, glanced at the calling Nami, then at the pursuing pirates, and suddenly gave a strange smile. All right everyone, get ready to fight. With that, he grabbed the bowsprit, stretched his arms far back, turned himself into a slingshot, and launched himself towards the Black Cat pirate ship. Zoro immediately grabbed Luffy's feet and flew along with him, while Reiner stayed behind alone to guard their boat. He recognized Nami now, and her boat was slowly getting closer. Boom. Luffy and Zoro crashed onto the Black Cat pirate ship like human cannonballs, instantly taking down several pirates upon landing. "Who are you? Are they accomplices of that thief?" The pirates surrounded them, raising guns and drawing swords. A stylishly dressed man wearing heart-shaped glasses stepped forward, looked at Luffy and Zoro, and said coolly, "Who cares? Just capture them first." "Attack." "Yes. Captain Django." At Django's command, all the pirates charged forward excitedly, and the battle on deck instantly erupted. Django had become the acting captain 3 years ago when Kuro faked his death to retire behind the scenes. Now, Kuro's plan was nearing completion, and they were heading towards Syrup Village. But then they encountered a thief halfway, who made off with a large portion of their treasure. If they showed up to meet Kuro like this, he'd surely skin them alive. However, Luffy and Zoro's combat prowess was practically unmatched in the East Blue, especially since the Black Cat Pirates had lost their captain Kuro 3 years prior. The first few pirates who rushed towards Luffy and Zoro were sent flying backwards instantly before they even knew what hit them. What happened? These two are tough. Everyone, attack together. The pirates' expressions turned grim, and they swarmed forward. But against such a vast difference in strength, numbers were no longer an advantage. The pirates surged forward like waves, only to be beaten back again and again. So strong. Nami couldn't help but marvel as she watched the situation unfold on the ship. She had only intended to divert the trouble, but seeing this, maybe these two could actually wipe out the entire crew. "Yo, that's a lot of money." Reiner had somehow appeared on Nami's boat without her noticing. He opened a bag lying on the deck, revealing it to be full of glittering treasure. Startled by the sudden voice behind her, Nami whipped around. A golden-haired man was crouching in front of the treasure she had just stolen. She quickly scrambled forward and snatched the bag away. Thank you for saving me. My name is Nami, nice to meet you all." Nami stammered nervously, hiding the treasure behind her back while trying to change the subject. "You're celebrating too early." Reiner remained expressionless, holding out his open palm in a hand-it-over gesture. "Me? Pirate? This is a robbery." "What?" Nami was stunned. She had only dared to approach because it was just 3 people on a small boat with no flag. Turns out they were pirates. Had she just walked right into the lion's den? She quickly pulled the 3 sections of her staff from her top, assembled it into a bow staff, and warily eyed Reiner. Nami thought frantically, it's just one guy. If I'm careful, maybe I have a chance. Thud. Thud. A tall figure and a small, skinny one suddenly landed on the boat. Both wore sharp cat claws on their hands. It was the Myoban brothers, Sham and Butchie. Judged. Sham assessed them with a sinister grin. "Dare to steal from our ship, huh? Have you decided how you want to die yet?" Nami looked frantically at the 2 newcomers. An idea instantly flashed through her mind. She turned to Reiner with a pitiful expression. "Boss. They're the ones who were chasing me. Attempting to divert the disaster, take 2. Reiner glanced at Nami with amusement. Pretty face, but played dirty. He calmly lit a cigarette and shot a mocking look at the Myoban brothers. With a laugh like that. "You won't live long, little brother." "What did you say?" Sham glared darkly at Reiner, shocked that someone would dare speak to them like that. He licked the sharp claws on his hand, his eyes flashing with malice. "We are the Myoban brothers, worth 7 million Bailey. Judging by your tone, you want to tangle with us? TSK, licking your blades? That bows just screams short lifespan, buddy." A sharp, grating sound suddenly filled the air as 2 figures emerged from the small boat's cabin. One wore a long black trench coat over a black suit, its face terrifying with sharp teeth, a long sword protruding forward as if piercing its forehead, and 2 more long swords extending from its hands. The other wore a white shirt, gray-black trousers, a tie, and sneakers, looking almost like a typical teenager. However, this second figure caused utter terror to spread across the faces of both the Myoban brothers and Nami. The sharp, grating sound came from him, because extending from his hands and forehead were 3 horrifying chainsaws. "What the hell are those things?" Nami shrieked and collapsed onto the deck, scrambling backwards while trembling, until she hit the railing with a jolt. Gulp. The Myoban brothers swallowed hard, their eyes wide with terror, staring fixedly at the 2 figures. They wished they were dead right now. This wasn't even a question of whether they could win anymore. They looked too horrifying, especially those 3 wearing chainsaws. Getting touched by those would mean bloody pulp, was the only thought left in their minds. Reiner dropped his cigarette butt and ground it out with his foot. He smiled gently at the Myoban brothers. "Allow me to introduce you. This one's called Little Knife, and this one is Little Saw. So, you 2 brothers are worth 7 million, is that right?" Wait a minute. Cold sweat dripped down the Myoban brothers' foreheads. They trembled as they backed away, screaming in terror at the two approaching demonic figures, "Don't come over here." Chapter 4, Knife and Saw Swoosh. The Chainsaw Devil and the Katana Devil lunged forward in a single bound. The Katana Devil, fast as lightning, appeared before the Myoban brothers in the blink of an eye, crossing its arms for a horizontal slash. In the heat of the moment, the Myoban brothers reacted instinctively. The tall Butchie crossed his claws defensively before his chest, while the smaller Sham reflexively leaped upwards. Clang, sparks flew as cat claws met long swords. Butchie strained with all his might, gripping the long swords tightly as a grinding sound emanated from the contact point. Sham, now. Feeling the immense force from his opponent and knowing he couldn't hold on for more than a few seconds, Butchie desperately yelled to his partner. A fierce glint appeared in Sham's eyes as he swiftly swung his claws straight for the Katana Devil's throat. However, someone else was faster. The Katana Devil didn't dodge Sham's attack, letting it come. Just as Sham was pinning him, he was also being pinned. Right behind the Katana Devil, the Chainsaw Devil abruptly surged upwards from below, its terrifying chainsaws slashing towards Butchie's large frame. Schlick, rick, two large sprays of blood erupted. In an instant, two ghastly wounds were torn open across Butchie's chest, and his grip simultaneously loosened. The Katana Devil retracted its blades and thrust upwards towards Sham, who was still midair, claws swinging. Clang, sparks flashed again. Butchie! Sham roared in panic, but he had no time to spare a glance at his partner. The Katana Devil's arms seemed to carry immense force, throwing him off balance. Sham absorbed the force, using his powerful core strength to execute a flip, leaping behind the Katana Devil. Before he even landed, he heard the grating sound of chainsaws behind him. The Chainsaw Devil had caught up from behind without him noticing. Sham whipped around, thrusting his claws out. Just as the cat claw gloves were about to make contact with the Chainsaw Devil abruptly changed its attack pattern, spinning and delivering a horizontal slash with both saws, one high and one low. A piercing scream rang out. Although Sham instinctively twisted his body sideways, one arm was still brutally torn off by the high-speed rotating chainsaw. Sham was terrified. Before he could even react or counterattack the Chainsaw Devil in front of him, the Katana Devil had already rushed to his side. "Wait!" Sham cried out in panic. Squish! Squish! Ignoring his pleas, the two long swords flashed with cold light, piercing Sham's body as smoothly as cutting through tofu. Sham froze, staring down in disbelief at the chilling blades impaling his torso, blood dripping uncontrollably onto the deck. The scene fell into a suffocating silence. Shing! The long swords were withdrawn, and Sham's body slumped limply onto the deck. From the start of the engagement, only a few breaths had passed, and both Myoban brothers lay defeated in pools of their own blood. The deck was stained crimson. The two demonic figures stood amidst the gore, their blades and saws dripping. "See? I told you that laugh meant a short life." Reiner's calm voice broke the tense silence. He slowly walked towards Nami, looking down at the terrified girl trembling on the deck, and held out his hand. "Me? Pirate. Robbery. Oh, okay, it's all yours. Just don't kill me." Nami's voice trembled, her palms slick with sweat. She tightly clutched the bag of treasure and held it out. Seeing the 7 million Biri Myoban brothers slain in the blink of an eye, witnessing the horrific scene, she had lost all will to resist. After holding out the treasure and seeing Reiner make no move to take it, Nami simply let go, dropping the bag on the deck and quickly pulling her arms back protectively against her chest. "Oh, my mistake. I don't rob money, I rob people." Reiner chuckled, kicked the bag of treasure aside, took a drag from his cigarette, and recalled the katana and chainsaw undead. He retracted his hand and sat down cross-legged. "You said your name is Nami, right? Do you know anything about navigation?" "A little bit," Nami responded softly. Seeing the two demonic figures inexplicably vanish, she breathed a sigh of relief, though she was still deeply shocked. Reiner adopted a more amiable tone. Of course, he knew Nami was skilled in navigation. "We're pirates, heading for the Grand Line. How about you become our navigator?" "Me?" Nami hesitated, wanting to refuse but unable to bring herself to do it. Yet, the thought of Kokoyasi village. Her hometown was still under Arlong's brutal rule. She needed to save 100 million Bailey to buy the village back from him. If she just left now, the villagers of Kokoyasi might never see freedom. What should I do? Maybe I should agree first, then find a chance to escape later? Nami's thoughts raced. She reasoned internally, it should be possible. There are only a few of them, they can't watch me every single second. I'll definitely find a chance to get away. Nami weighed her options for a moment and was about to pretend to agree when Reiner interrupted her. "Are you secretly planning something?" Reiner looked at the thoughtful Nami, propping his chin on his hand. Pretend to agree first, then find a chance to escape? Maybe even find a way to screw us over? Nami's pupils contracted, shock flashing across her face. Reiner understood Nami's scheming mind perfectly, because he was exactly the same type of person. By this time, Luffy and Zoro had finished dealing with the Black Cat pirates and had even dragged Django back with them. Reiner pointed at Nami and called out to them, "Hey Luffy! Navigator! I found one." "Eh? Really?" Luffy looked excitedly at Nami, his eyes shining. "Hi, I'm Luffy." "Hello," Nami replied timidly, feeling like a frightened little lamb. She had witnessed Luffy and Zoro's combat prowess firsthand just moments ago. Among the three, Reiner seemed the least physically imposing, but he could apparently command those two terrifying demons. Now, with all three present, she had absolutely no power to resist. Nami felt like today was just the worst luck ever. "Oh right, Reiner," Luffy seemed to remember something, holding up Django, whom he was carrying. "This guy seems to be heading to Syrup Village too. He said he has some secret he can tell us." The bruised and swollen Django managed a fawning smile. Reiner recalled that this guy used hypnosis. 3 years ago, he had hypnotized Morgan into believing he had captured Kuro of 100 Plans. Morgan was promoted to captain based on this, while Kuro used the opportunity to hide in Syrup Village and begin his 3-year plot targeting Kaya's fortune. "If you just let me go, I guarantee you'll get a hefty reward." Django rubbed his hands together, smiling sycophantically at them. "Let's hear it then," Reiner said. He already knew the secret was just Kuro's business. Under the unfriendly gazes of the group, Django spilled everything about Kuro's plan. It turned out Kuro intended to use Django's hypnosis to make Kaya write a will leaving her entire fortune to him, as Claador, after which he planned to kill her. Basically, Django concluded, looking shifty-eyed, you could cooperate with Captain Kuro and split Kaya's fortune, or you could report Kuro to the Marines and stop him. I'm sure the Kaya family would give you a nice reward either way. He even started offering them strategic advice. His words had the opposite effect. Luffy only got angrier. Doing that bastard. How could he do something so horrible? Luffy knocked Django out cold with one punch, shaking his fist indignantly. Reiner had zero interest in Kuro's scheme itself, but he was interested in Kuro's template. He would have gone after Kuro regardless of this situation. Furthermore, the Kaya family had a ship, the one destined to be their first real pirate ship, plus Usopp, that ancient Greek god of clutch situations. It was a one-day journey to Syrup Village. Reiner saw it as a dungeon instance brimming with rewards, and he was already eager to go farm Kuro for gold drops. Chapter 5, Syrup Village. The next day dawned bright and sunny, with not a cloud in the vast sky. Their group, temporarily joined by Nami, finally arrived at Syrup Village with 4 members. As for Django, he was tossed into the sea to feed the fish. If he survived, it was purely down to fate. The island where Syrup Village was located had rather unique terrain. Steep cliffs lined almost the entire coastline where it met the sea. There was only one harbor on the east side of the island, accessible via a long, sloping path leading inland. After docking and disembarking, Luffy excitedly charged up the slope first. Reiner tied the boat's rope to a wooden post on the shore, secured it, and followed. "Honestly, I can't handle this, Captain." Nami sighed helplessly, watching Luffy rush off impatiently on his own. Although she had been thoroughly frightened by the 2 demons Reiner summoned yesterday, her opinion of the group had gradually changed since then. Initially, she felt quite favorable towards them for saving her. Furthermore, after hearing Django's secret, Luffy's reaction had astounded Nami. He had spent the entire day yelling about wanting to come here and beat up Kuro. Are there really pirates who like fighting for justice these days? The pirates she had known since childhood were Arlong and his crew, whose brutality had instilled in her a deep hatred for all pirates. To buy Kokoyasi village back from Arlong, Nami had become a thief, but she exclusively targeted pirates. In her view, pirates' money was ill-gotten gains. Even though she never considered herself a good person, she stole from pirates with a clear conscience. She still had no intention of becoming a pirate, but she could accept traveling with this group for the time being. "Stop right there." A shout drew the group's attention. A long-nosed young man with an afro jumped out from the side, blocking their path. He had tan skin and a pouch tied around his waist. Reiner recognized him instantly. The great Usopp, a man constantly wavering between courage and cowardice. Speaking of which, Reiner actually admired Usopp quite a bit. Compared to Zoro's unrealistically perfect image, Usopp was more like a reflection of ordinary people. Yet, it was this timid, weak person who could always face his inner fears at critical moments, step forward, and fight to the death for his companions with unwavering resolve. He allowed the flower of miracles to bloom on this seemingly insignificant character. "Looks like the weakling trio can be formed ahead of schedule," Reiner thought. As for the third member besides Nami and Usopp, yes, that would be him. He was just a logistics crewman. His undead summons were strong. What did that have to do with him? Besides, he currently only had 2 combat-capable undead, the Katana Devil made from Zoro's template and the Chainsaw Devil made from Luffy's template. Although Luffy didn't use a 3-sword style, his fighting talent was excellent, he was agile, and his fighting style was unpredictable with constantly changing moves. Combined with those 3 menacing chainsaws, just looking at them hurt. Anyone who faced it would surely shudder. Shaking off his thoughts, Reiner slowly caught up. How did you know I'm Usopp's son? Ha ha ha, you guys look so much alike. At first glance, I thought, what's Usopp doing here? Usopp and Luffy, who was leading the way, had already started talking. Luffy recognized him immediately. The father and son really did look alike, especially the afro and thick lips. You know my dad. Usopp was both surprised and delighted, quickly chasing after Luffy to ask about Usopp. He should still be on Shanks' ship, I think. You mean red-haired Shanks? How did you know? What? But he's a great pirate. Eh, is he? Luffy scratched his head and grinned. Our captain never reads the news. Reiner felt exasperated with Luffy too. Shanks was the person Luffy admired most, yet he never bothered to find out any news about him. The group chatted as they walked, with Luffy constantly telling Usopp stories about Usopp along the way. When Luffy was young, Shanks' crew had stayed in Fuushof village for a while, and Luffy had often listened to Lucky Roo and Usopp brag. Now, unexpectedly, he was repeating Usopp's tall tales to his own son. Soon, the 5 of them reached the village center and randomly entered a restaurant. You seem to really admire Usopp, huh? Of course. Usopp stood up on his chair, stepped onto the table, and declared boldly, my dream is to be just like him, a brave warrior of the sea. That's pretty cool. Then join us as our nakama. Luffy grinned, showing his teeth, and invited Usopp. In that case, I can be your captain. No thanks, chorused 4 voices simultaneously as the others lowered their heads and continued eating silently. Hey, wait a minute. Don't refuse so bluntly. Think about it. Usopp tried to argue. Speaking of which, we're actually looking for a ship. Reiner put down his utensils and brought up the topic. Usopp, do you know where we might find one? A ship, huh? Usopp rubbed his chin, looked up thoughtfully, and said, around here, there's probably only one place that would have a ship. Great. Usopp, take us there. Luffy looked up excitedly. Usopp suddenly remembered something and quickly backtracked. No. You can't go there. The others were somewhat surprised. Usopp then explained about the mansion in the village and its mistress, Kaya. Wait a minute, the Kaya Usopp mentioned. Isn't that related to what Django told us yesterday? Kuro's conspiracy. Reiner already knew about this, but besides him, Nami was the first to make the connection. He decided to lay the cards on the table with Usopp directly, then lead the group to expose Kuro forcefully. Django? You know about Kaya and Kuro? Usopp was confused. He had only talked about Kaya, how did they know about Kuro? Reiner slowly explained how they encountered the Black Cat pirates yesterday and learned about Kuro's scheme from Django. Hey! You're not lying, are you? Usopp looked incredulous, slamming his hands on the table. This isn't just some lie you cooked up because you want the ship, is it? Reiner directly pulled out the bounty poster he'd gotten from Django and showed it to Usopp. It showed Kuro's bounty information from 3 years ago. Probably only Django and his crew still had copies now. After all, Kuro had officially been captured, and the Black Cat pirates had kept a low profile since then. This is. Usopp's expression turned panicked. He recognized Kuro immediately. He often snuck into Kaya's estate to see her and was always chased away by Kuro, as Claddor. Damn it. Usopp stuffed the bounty poster into his waist pouch, turned, and bolted out the door. He had to tell Kaya this news immediately. A pirate with a 16 million Bailey bounty had been lurking by her side for 3 years. Wait for me. I'm gonna go beat up that bastard too. Luffy hurriedly stood up, grabbing the plate of food from the table as he went. Reiner and the others followed. Kuro wasn't someone to be underestimated. His Shakushi speed technique was currently too fast for any of them to keep up with. This was also why Reiner was interested in Kuro, that extreme burst speed was perfect for sneak attacks, which was just so cool. Chapter 6, Kuro, I need you to help me train. Usopp rushed frantically to Kaya's mansion. Avoiding the guards, he snuck in and ran to the tree beside Kaya's room, leaping onto a branch. Kaya, this is bad. Usopp saw Kaya lying near the window, quietly reading a book. His anxious heart finally settled. There was still time. If he could just quickly tell Kaya the truth and get her away. What's wrong, Usopp? Kaya tucked a strand of golden hair behind her ear, pleased to see the young man, but then noticed the panic on his face and grew concerned. Kaya, listen to me. The butler in your mansion, Kuro. He's a pirate. Usopp hurriedly told Kaya the information he'd just learned. Come with me first, I'll explain everything slowly later. Haha, what are you talking about, Usopp? Kaya was stunned at first, then started laughing. Is this today's story? Ever since Kaya's parents passed away, she had fallen into a state of depression, which even affected her physical health. Usopp had been the one constantly by her side, often running over to tell her exaggerated stories. Kaya knew they were fake, sometimes recognizing tales she'd read in storybooks. But she never exposed him, simply playing along with Usopp, occasionally smiling. Sometimes because the story was funny, sometimes because just looking at the young man inexplicably made her happy. The anxiety on Usopp's face deepened. He knew Kaya thought he was telling another story. His voice couldn't help but get louder. No, Kaya. I'm telling you the truth. Suddenly, he remembered the bounty poster from Reiner and hastily fumbled for it in his waist pouch. Knock, knock, knock. A knock sounded at Kaya's door. Ms. Kaya, it's me, Kuro. I've brought your lunch. Hearing Kuro's voice, Usopp froze instantly, large beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead. Oh no, Usopp. Kaya became flustered. You need to leave quickly. If Kuro finds you, he'll call the guards to chase you away again. No. Usopp's hand trembled as he thrust the bounty poster in front of Kaya. Look. I'm not lying. This is real. Hurry up and leave with me. I'll carry you and jump from the window. Trust me, Kaya. This is. Kaya stared at the face on the bounty poster in disbelief. Aside from some differences in clothing, the face was identical to Kuro's. How could it be? Kuro, he. Kaya found it hard to accept. The gentle, refined butler was suddenly a notorious pirate with a 16 million Bailey bounty? Ms. Kaya, are you alright? I'm coming in. Outside the door, Kuro sensed something was wrong. Today was the day he was supposed to meet Django, but the latter hadn't shown up yet. He felt like tearing Django to shreds. Coupled with Kaya's reaction. He had clearly heard movement inside but received no reply from Kaya. Even if it wasn't convenient for him to enter, she would usually at least say something. A faint sense of foreboding crept into his heart. Could it be Django, that useless idiot? Kuro truly lived up to his reputation as a pirate known for his intellect. He figured it out instantly. Bang! Suddenly, with a loud crash, the room door was violently kicked open. Kuro gritted his teeth as he saw Usopp by the window, holding Kaya and preparing to leave. His face instantly became terrifyingly dark. Kuro. Usopp and Kaya gasped. Seeing Kuro pull out long, sharp claw gloves from his suit and put them on, Usopp couldn't help but tremble. Why? Kuro's eyes were ice cold as he spoke flatly. How did you find out? Don't tell me you, useless trash, defeated Django. Yo, we told him. A clear voice suddenly came from outside the window. Luffy was squatting on a tree branch, still holding a half-eaten plate of food. He stuffed a piece of meat into his mouth and looked calmly at Kuro. I'm the one who beat that weird glasses guy. Who are you? My name is Luffy. I'm the man who will become the king of the pirates. King of the pirates? So you're a pirate too. Kuro looked coldly at Luffy. Why interfere? We have no grudge between us, right? Or perhaps you just wanted to run over here and play the hero? Hero? No, I already told you I want to be king of the pirates. As for why? Luffy placed the plate on the windowsill, cracked his knuckles, and grinned, showing his teeth. I don't like the look of you, so I came to beat you up. It's as simple as that. As Luffy spoke, he stretched his arms out, wrapped them around Usopp and Kaya, and gently lowered them to the ground below. What is this? His arms stretched. Usopp and Kaya stared wide-eyed at the arms encircling them, utterly aghast. Is that all? Kuro's face gradually twisted into a snarl. 3 years. 3 years of my painstaking planning. All ruined because of your nonsensical reason. All for nothing just because you didn't like the look of me. You really deserve to die. Kuro roared, spreading the 10 blades on his hands, which glinted with a menacing light. Swoosh. The next moment, Kuro's figure vanished instantly from his spot. This was his silent step, a high-speed burst movement technique performed soundlessly. When he reappeared, he was already right in front of Luffy. So fast. Luffy was startled, he hadn't fully reacted to the opponent's instantaneous burst of speed. Schlick. Blood spurted as the 10 claws slashed several bloody marks across Luffy's chest. Damn it. Luffy gritted his teeth. Although he had instinctively flinched backward, he was still hit. He performed a backflip, landing on the lawn. However, Kuro didn't pause after landing the hit. He pressed his advantage, closing the distance again just as Luffy landed. His sharp claws slashed down viciously. Clang! Sparks suddenly flashed in midair. A figure clad entirely in black, with sharp teeth, parried Kuro's claws with swords. What the hell is this thing? Kuro stared in terror at the Katana Devil. This person's appearance. No, this thing didn't look human at all. This damned thing looked way too creepy. The sharp, grating sound echoed again as another bizarre figure emerged. Its terrifying appearance surpassed even the Katana Devils, with 3 high-speed rotating chainsaws that were chilling to behold. AHHH. A piercing scream rang out. Kaya covered her face with her hands as if seeing something utterly horrifying. How rude. Reiner walked up from behind, followed by Zoro and Nami. Looking at the terrified Kaya, Reiner lit a cigarette and said nonchalantly, "Little Knife and Little Saw will have their feelings hurt. Those names are creepy on them, damn it." Nami shot him a glare. "No matter how many times I see those things, they're disgusting. Anyway, he's our target, right? Looks like a decent opponent." Zoro drew his swords, eyeing Kuro with interest. "Roronoa Zoro?" Kuro looked at Zoro drawing his swords. Although retired behind the scenes, he still kept up with information from the outside world. He was familiar with the pirate hunter who had gained fame in the East Blue over the past 2 years, the 3-sword-style swordsman Zoro. Looking at Luffy, Zoro, and the 2 bizarre-looking creatures, Kuro's expression couldn't help but turn grim. This situation is really not good. Reiner directed the 2 demons to surround Kuro while he himself stayed back. He casually took the long rifle off his back and began loading bullets. 4 versus 1? No, it's 5 versus 1. This wasn't some kind of duel, no one would think it unfair. Kuro, I need you to help me train. Chapter 7, The Black Cat's Curtain Fall. Thank you. Usopp looked up and thanked Reiner and Nami beside him. He honestly thought he was dead, facing a pirate worth 16 million Bailey. Although he usually talked big, he knew his own limits. He hadn't expected Luffy, Reiner, and the others, despite having met only yesterday, to be willing to offend the once infamous Kuro for their sake. You misunderstand. Reiner racked the bolt of his rifle, glancing at Usopp and Kaya sitting on the ground. First, we came looking for Kuro regardless of you. Second, there's a ship here. He paused, then added, let's just consider it a transaction. After we defeat Kuro, you give us the ship. Kaya looked at the man before her, his expression lazy and indifferent. She couldn't tell if he was genuinely helping out of kindness or just after her family's ship. However, as long as they could get through this crisis, it didn't matter even if his intentions weren't pure. After all, he had just saved her and Usopp's lives, at least the outcome was positive. I understand. Thank you again for saving us. Kaya was much more sensible than Usopp, understanding that even if they were plotting something, she had no other choice. Reiner grinned, showing his teeth. Hey Luffy. We've secured our ship too. Shishishi. All the more reason to beat this guy senseless. Luffy grinned eagerly at Kuro, rubbing his fists together as he charged forward. Zoro followed close behind. Reiner didn't hesitate either, commanding his 2 demons to surge forward. The clang of blades echoed continuously, sparks flashing in the air intermittently. These guys. Each one is more ridiculous than the last. Kuro felt like grinding his teeth to dust, secretly alarmed by the force transmitted through his 10 blades. Any single one of these 4 possesses strength comparable to mine. How have I never heard even a whisper of such a powerful pirate crew? It wasn't Kuro's fault, this was only their 2nd day at sea. They had just caused trouble at the 153rd branch yesterday and arrived at Syrup Village this morning. Even the best informed person couldn't possibly get news that fast. After just a few exchanges, Kuro found himself completely suppressed. Suddenly, caught off guard, he took a heavy punch to the stomach from Luffy. Kuro clutched his belly, only for the chainsaw devil to slash another deep wound across his back. Ah! Intense pain washed over him. Kuro gritted his teeth, forcing himself to endure it as he used his silent step to create distance. Cold sweat poured down his forehead and face. A dark shadow flickered in Kuro's eyes. I have no choice but to use that technique. Shakushi. Kuro's strongest technique, an advanced form of silent step. It was so fast that even he couldn't clearly see what he would hit. Once activated, it was a relentless assault that wouldn't stop until he exhausted his stamina. Kuro raised a hand and pushed his glasses up with his palm. He crossed his arms, his 10 blades flashing with a chilling light. Shakushi. In the next instant, Kuro's figure vanished. A fierce wind swept across the lawn, a killing wind as sharp as knives. So fast. I can't see him at all. Luffy and Zoro were astonished by his speed. Swing. 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 Deep claw marks suddenly appeared on the ground, then on the walls, then on tree trunks. Without warning, with no discernible pattern. Hey, let's get away from this area first. Reiner frowned, his expression turning serious. He protected his vitals, one arm around his neck, the other shielding his chest, as he backed away. Usopp pulled Kaya away to safety. Nami had already smartly hidden herself earlier. She knew that if even these guys were struggling, she would only get in the way. Clang! Suddenly, sparks flew from the Katana Devil's sword, and several gashes inexplicably appeared on its leg. Luffy. You two fall back, let these two take it. Reiner shouted to the two in the field. Shakushi was a technique comparable in speed to instant transmission. They currently lacked the ability to track him. Their only option was to gamble. Gamble that Kuro would run out of stamina first, or try to grab him when hit, which depended on whether the hit struck a vital point. However, with Reiner's two undead creatures present, things were much simpler. Just let them tank the hits. Undead have no concept of life. If they break, they get repaired, it just costs a bit of stamina. Got it. Luffy and Zoro decisively retreated. This wasn't a formal duel, they weren't foolish enough to just wait to be cut. On the field, the Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil stood back to back, raising their arms defensively. They remained motionless, letting themselves be struck on the back. Until the next moment, when several slash marks suddenly appeared on the Chainsaw Devil's chest. Both men instantly reacted, bringing their swords and saws down violently. A blood-curdling scream echoed as a spray of blood appeared out of thin air. The Katana Devil had luckily landed a blow. Kuro, moving at high speed, stumbled heavily, crashing to the ground and rolling several times. My arm. Kuro gritted his teeth, staring at his empty right shoulder, trembling from the intense pain. The Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil blurred into motion, holding their weapons across their chests as they shot forward, skimming across the ground. Watching the two figures hurtling towards him, Kuro actually felt a sense of relief. He knew his life was at its end. Is it over? Kuro's expression dimmed, he no longer had the strength to dodge. This is why I hated this kind of life. Every day, either terrified some strong opponent would show up, or constantly harassed by ants. It's just so annoying. If I had known. Maybe I should have just stayed hidden like that. Schlick. 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 Blood spurted. Kuro's vision gradually blurred. His body, unable to support itself any longer, pitched forward, collapsing face down onto the crimson lawn. Reiner felt nothing regarding Kuro's death. There were plenty of ways to live a stable life, he could have even hidden away at Kaya's mansion forever. But in the end, he was greedy. Every choice has a cost, and Kuro had failed. That was all. Is he dead? Yeah, completely dead. Reiner answered Usopp and walked over to collect Kuro's physical information template. His leg strength and explosive power were impressive. His fragility could be compensated for with Reiner's abilities. His strength was also lacking, but with weapons, his attack power would be sufficient in the early stages. Reiner had high expectations for him. Soon, Kaya's household guards came out to clean up the scene. The group was invited into the mansion as guests. Led by the butler Mary, they entered the main gate, walked through a long corridor, and arrived at the reception hall. The reception hall was incredibly spacious. A huge circular coffee table sat in the center, surrounded by luxurious leather sofas. An exquisite crystal chandelier hung overhead, and patterned tiles covered the floor. Reiner leaned back on the sofa, observing the room. It was filled with expensive works of art, with at least 10 paintings hanging on the walls. No wonder Kuro was tempted, the contents of this reception hall alone were worth several times his bounty. I knew her family was rich, but I didn't expect it to be this extravagant. Reiner thought to himself. Looks like I'll have to extort a bit more. They must have plenty of good wine and cigars hidden away. For Kaya's health, I should help her by taking these things off her hands. What, you say I'm shameless? Yes, that's me, correct. Nami was currently tearing up silently. So many valuable treasures right before her eyes, yet she couldn't take them. Maybe I should just steal a few pieces. Just a few. No, I promised myself I only steal from pirates. No, but we did save her life. Taking a few items isn't excessive. No, Nami. How is that different from being a pirate? But I am a pirate now. Nami was having a conversation with herself, which Reiner found quite amusing to watch. Please stay for dinner today, everyone. Kaya walked in from the doorway, offering a gentle smile. Later, I will take you to see the ship. Mary designed it himself. This trip really yielded a full harvest. Reiner leaned back on the sofa, thoroughly satisfied. Chapter 8, going merry and Usopp at the lively feast, with drinks and conversations flowing freely. Luffy and Usopp were fooling around, standing on the table. With chopsticks stuck up their nostrils and holding dustpans, they performed a strange dance, making Kaya giggle uncontrollably. This captain really has no dignity. Nami sighed helplessly. Speaking of which, where are we heading next? You're not going to use that method again, are you? Zoro couldn't help but glance at Reiner. He remembered how Reiner had previously made Luffy randomly point at a spot on the map, which led them to target Syrup Village. That method? Ahem, I already have an idea for our next stop. Reiner gave a slight cough, saying to a curious Nami, don't you think our ship is still missing an important crewmate? You mean that role, right? Yeah, the ship really needs someone in that position. Zoro and Nami nodded, rubbing their chins in agreement. You guys think so too, right? Luffy overheard and joined the conversation, looking around at them with a grin. Then it's decided. Let's go find a musician. It's a cook? A cook? If you're not using your brain, you should donate it. Speaking of cooks. Reiner paused, then looked up. The Barati Sea restaurant. Let's go there. However, that's already close to the Grand Line. Before that, I was thinking of making a trip to the Konami Islands to find Arlong. Konami Islands? Where's that? Arlong. Compared to the others' confusion, Nami let out a startled cry. She hadn't expected to hear that name from Reiner's lips. Arlong, those two words were practically her nightmare, evoking deep-seated fear and disgust every time they were mentioned. She could never forget the image of Arlong killing Belmere with his own hands to protect her and Nojiko. Nami, what's wrong? Do you know this Arlong? Luffy asked, noticing Nami's pale face. Nami's face darkened, and she fell silent. The lively atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Reiner spoke first, breaking the silence. Arlong was originally a member of a certain fishman pirate crew in the Grand Line. He slowly explained to Luffy and the others how Arlong came to the East Blue and established his brutal tyranny over the Konami Islands. Sounds like a real bastard. Reiner, Nami, do you know him? Luffy asked, puzzled. Even Nami looked sideways at Reiner. She wondered what Reiner wanted with Arlong. Could he be colluding with him? What are you thinking? Reiner noticed Nami's suspicious gaze and explained, have you forgotten my ability? I'm just interested in his template, that's all. Oh, so that's how it is. Luffy understood, grinning broadly. Then let's go beat up Arlong first and help Reiner collect a new monster. It's undead, not monsters. Hey, wait a minute. Nami became anxious. Do you even know how strong Arlong is? Nami trailed off. Arlong's power was deeply ingrained in her mind. Over the years, countless Marines who tried to capture him disappeared, ship and all, before even getting close. Hearing they planned to pick a fight with Arlong instantly alarmed her. But Nami looked up at the group. Luffy, Zoro, Reiner's undead. They had dealt with Kuro, a pirate with a 16 million Bailey bounty, so easily. If it's them, maybe. Nami couldn't help but wonder. Perhaps they really could defeat Arlong? If so, the people of Kokoyasi village could finally be freed from Arlong's oppressive rule. No, she couldn't risk it. If they failed, knowing Arlong's cruelty, he would definitely kill them all. Nami was torn. She had made a deal with Arlong, gather 100 million Bailey, and she could buy Kokoyasi village back from him. But that was 100 million. So many years had passed, and the goal was still nowhere in sight. Hey Nami, what's wrong with you? You've been acting strange since just now. The others were puzzled. Besides Reiner, none of them knew about Nami's history with Arlong. I know Arlong. Nami finally decided to tell them the truth. Subsequently, through Nami's gritted teeth and suppressed anger, the group learned about her past. Many years ago, after Arlong and his crew came to the East Blue, they used their overwhelming strength to rule the Konami Islands. Everyone had to pay regular protection money to live, and her hometown, Kokoyasi village, was one of the islands under his control. So that's why you became a thief? Zoro guessed the reason Nami went to sea after hearing about her deal with Arlong. Luffy was even angrier. That bastard. I've decided. Our next stop is to find that Arlong. Wait, didn't you hear me? Arlong is. No need to persuade us, Nami. Reiner interrupted her. No matter what, we already consider you our navigator. If our own crewmate has been wronged, and we don't go settle the score, can we even call ourselves pirates? Besides, with Arlong still around, you wouldn't be able to travel with us peacefully anyway, right? Reiner stood up and looked down at Nami. Luffy doesn't like him, I want to collect his template, and you've suffered under him. Any single one of those reasons is enough for us to beat him up. That's the pirate way of doing things. Nami covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. She had gotten used to relying only on herself. She never thought that after Belmere died, she would meet people she could depend on again. Thank you. Wah. That's so moving. Usopp was crying streams of tears. Someday, I'll go to sea too and become pirates just like you guys. What? You're coming too? Eh? Hearing Luffy's words, Usopp looked completely baffled. I remember inviting you already. Eh? Wait, was that for real? Not a joke? Yeah, it was serious. Luffy grinned. I like you. Usopp looked around at the others in a daze. What are you spacing out for? Reiner lit another cigarette and teased Usopp. Hurry up and go back to pack your things. We're setting sail after we finish eating. If you miss the boat, there won't be a next one. Wait. Usopp scrambled to his feet and rushed outside. Reiner glanced at Kaya and teased, sorry for stealing your little boyfriend away. You don't blame us, right? And no. Not at all. Kaya blushed faintly and stammered, I always knew Usopp would go out to sea someday. Although Kaya said this, a hint of sadness could still be seen in her eyes. Soon, after finishing their meal, Kaya and Mary led them to the port. Usopp was already there, waiting next to a single-masted sailing ship. The ship had a white sheep's head figurehead, a large mainmast on the deck, and a triangular sail at the stern, with a two-story cabin structure sitting atop it. This ship might look a bit retro, but I designed it myself. Mary gestured towards the ship, introducing it to the group. It's a fast caravel. I named it the Going Merry. While Mary was explaining things to Nami, the others had already eagerly boarded the ship. Ha, this is awesome. Luffy was sprawled over the sheep figurehead, arms and legs wrapped around it, looking up with a huge grin. From now on, this is my special seat. Chapter 9, Reiner's Logistics Life. Reiner stood on the deck, surveying the ship. He stomped his foot, and the wooden planks creaked. Looks like my life in logistics is about to begin. He climbed the rope ladder to the crow's nest and looked down. Zoro was already sitting on the deck to one side, leaning against the railing and starting to doze off. Looking up, the vast azure sea stretched out before him. He turned again to look towards the island. His gaze pierced through the forest, and he could vaguely make out the scattered houses of the village. The view up here is pretty good. He leaned on the railing, looking down with a smile. Then I'll claim this spot. From now on, lookout duty is mine too. Ah, okay, Luffy replied with a laugh. Reiner jumped down from the crow's nest and opened a large blue backpack. It contained some supplies gifted by Kaya, besides food, the rest were daily necessities and a small amount of medicine. Even shampoo and shower gel? Mary is quite thoughtful. After organizing and inventorying the items, Reiner began exploring the Going Merry. A trapdoor on the deck near the mast opened downwards into the men's dormitory, which held 2 sofas and several hammocks in the corner. Pretty Spartan, Reiner sighed, looking at the simple dorm. The cabin at the bow housed the cannons and ammunition. The main 2-story cabin structure sat mid-deck. The first floor was the storage room, with several cannons mounted on either side. Reiner placed some of the supplies here. The women's dormitory was located below the storage room. Reiner took a quick peek. Its furnishings were clearly much more luxurious than the men's dorm, featuring sofas, tables, bookshelves, wardrobes, etc., and even a bar counter. Outside on the deck, stairs on either side led to the second floor, which housed the combined living area, comprising the kitchen, dining room, meeting room, and so on. After exploring for a while, Reiner summoned several skeletons and had them sort and place the supplies. Not bad, Reiner. Nami came aboard, smiling as she looked up at Reiner leaning against the railing outside the second floor. Your ability can even be used for chores like this. Looks like things will be much easier from now on. Piece of cake. I'll have them clean the whole ship inside and out later, Reiner waved dismissively and grinned. Although his current combat-ready undead were only those made from the Luffy, Zoro, and Kuro templates, he still had plenty of miscellaneous grunts, including Morgan. These could be used for chores without any concern. He had modeled Kuro's template after Wolverine. Being undead, it still looked somewhat creepy, but at least it resembled a person. In regular combat, it was fine against minor foes, but he wouldn't personally engage named enemies. He wanted to maintain a clear distinction between himself and his undead in the eyes of the world. Until he obtained top-tier combat undead, he needed to hide his own capabilities as much as possible. It wasn't that he completely lacked combat ability. Thanks to his devil fruit enhancements, his physical stats weren't bad. But his own strength was only average, not comparable to Luffy or Zoro, maybe not even his own undead summons. He had only transmigrated a year ago. No matter how much he trained, the improvement was limited. He didn't have some hypothetical effort fruit that allowed him to defy limits through hard work alone. Unless he activated his transformation, becoming the Necrolord, But that was too conspicuous and detrimental to his preferred low-key early development strategy. In his transformed state, his physical attributes would be based on the highest corresponding stats among his undead. For example, currently, he could gain Kuro's speed, Zoro's wrist strength, and other attributes based on the relatively balanced Luffy template. Simply put, his strength ultimately depended on the undead he possessed. Transmigration didn't grant other bonuses like automatic invincibility through effort. That was just wishful thinking. However, his golden finger, the devil fruit itself, had a very high ceiling. What he lacked was time. As for what teacher Kaido said about Haki transcending all, he took it as just one perspective. He himself was a devil fruit user. Ultimately, strength determines who's right. Enel also called himself a god, didn't he? And Luffy still kicked his ass. By that logic, does fate transcend all? In the end, human effort makes the difference. Bringing his thoughts back, he realized his cigarette had burned down. Usopp finished loading his things onto the ship, and they raised the anchor, preparing to set sail. Goodbye everyone. Goodbye Usopp. Goodbye Kaya. When I come back, I'll tell you adventure stories even more amazing than my tall tales. Usopp waved goodbye to Kaya. Today, he had finally taken the first step towards becoming a brave warrior of the sea. Kaya and Mary stood quietly on the shore, watching until the small ship disappeared over the horizon. Ms. Kaya, a few days ago, I heard something about Usopp from the villagers. Mary smiled gently and began speaking slowly. Before his mother passed away, Usopp ran through the village shouting pirates are coming. All the way home, he excitedly told his mother that his father had returned to take them with him out to sea. Perhaps it was out of loneliness, but even after his mother died, he continued to shout pirates are coming. In the village every day. The villagers say his lies carried a powerful wish, hoping that one day his father really would come back for them. Kaya listened quietly to Mary's words, gazing out at the sea as if lost in thought. Mary. I want to study medicine. Is that so? You've suddenly made quite a big decision. Aboard the Going Merry, the crew was celebrating. Let's toast to the Going Merry and to Usopp. Cheers. I see you don't have a pirate flag yet. Usopp looked up at the empty mast. The flag is the soul of a pirate crew. Tell me your ideas, my drawing skills are top-notch. Really? Luffy's face lit up with excitement. I didn't know you had that talent. This great Usopp often painted on the village walls, it's a skill honed since childhood, Usopp boasted proudly. Soon, Reiner brought out a bolt of black cloth, several cans of paint, and some brushes from the storage. Usopp began drawing flamboyantly on the black cloth, and in no time, he completed a pirate flag. A white skull wearing a yellow straw hat, with a pair of crossed bones behind it. Not bad, Usopp. Reiner took the flag, genuinely impressed. I'll go hang it up. Can you outline the design on the sail? I'll have my skeletons fill in the paint. Leave it to me. Soon, with Usopp and Reiner working together, the same large design as the flag was painted onto their mainsail. The crew looked at it, smiling couldn't help but appear on their faces. The Straw Hat Pirates were officially formed. Nami, how long will it take to reach Kokoyasi village? Reiner suddenly asked. Nami answered immediately without thinking, 2 days. But I have to ask again, are you really sure about this? Arlong's bounty is 20 million, but I suspect his strength is far greater than that. In the past, many Marines who came to subjugate Arlong failed without exception. He's secretly colluding with a certain Marine branch to suppress many of his crimes, so his bounty hasn't increased. Hearing this, Zoro frowned slightly. He used to make a living hunting wanted criminals and knew something about the Navy's bounty rules. To some extent, a bounty reflected strength, and 20 million was definitely very high in the East Blue. Based on what Nami said, Arlong's strength was likely far greater than they imagined. Chapter 10, Kokoyasi Village 20 million Bailey, huh? That's quite a hefty bounty, Reiner thought. Too bad they were pirates and couldn't cash it in. Still, Arlong had been accumulating wealth for years, there was probably a lot of treasure to be gained. As for whether they could win, Arlong was certainly strong in the original story, but Reiner figured it would be an easy fight. He was very confident. In a head-on confrontation, just sending out the Wolverine summon might be enough. Since it was undead, without the concept of life, he could repair any damage. Even if it got tied up, Reiner could simply recall it and summon it again. Relying on its high speed and high attack, as long as it could inflict damage, it could wear Arlong down to death. As Nami continued her explanation, the group got a better idea of Arlong's strength. He can flip a house over barehanded? Usopp immediately collapsed onto the deck, clutching his chest dramatically. Oh no. I've contracted a strange disease where I'll die if I set foot off this ship. Arlong is all up to you guys now. Are you okay, Usopp? Luffy turned, saw Usopp suddenly collapse, and panicked, rushing over and shaking him. Watching these two clowns, Nami and Zoro's faces darkened. They sighed, rubbing their foreheads. This idiot. Anyway, Arlong is very strong, Nami said worriedly. I know you guys are monster level strong too, but honestly, I'm still not sure. If we fail, we'll all die. Don't worry, Nami. Reiner spoke up reassuringly with a smile. They're really strong. Plus, you have me. I mean, my undead. There won't be any problems. This is totally in the bag. Besides Arlong himself, a few of his subordinates are also worth noting: Hachan, Kurubi, Chu. Nami began introducing Arlong's officers. Reiner didn't remember any of the names Nami mentioned, except vaguely recalling Hachan. Still, it sounded like Arlong had quite a few subordinates. Fishmen naturally possess 10 times the physical strength of humans, collecting them one by one to use as grunts wouldn't be bad. Plus, they were all excellent swimmers, an invaluable asset at sea. He felt happy just thinking about the potential gains. Sailing on the open sea was quite boring, and now Reiner's undead handled all the chores. The crew had limited activities. Luffy and Usopp passed the time fishing. Nami stayed in her room drawing sea charts, using the high-quality paper and ink she got from Kaya. Reiner, meanwhile, lifted weights with Zoro. He was actually diligent about training, partly because his ability couldn't collect templates from those significantly stronger than himself. Like Garp, for instance. Additionally, training his physical body was essential to eventually meet the threshold for learning 2 types of hockey. Speaking of which, Zoro, your strength is insane, Reiner couldn't help but remark, eyeing the massive barbell in Zoro's hands. He roughly estimated it had to be around 2 tons, yet Zoro was casually doing nearly 1,000 squats with it. Truly outrageous. Probably because I've been training constantly since I was a kid, Zoro glanced at Reiner. You, on the other hand, your endurance is incredible. The barbell Reiner held was only 1 ton, far less than Zoro's, but he had already done 2,000 squats. It's because controlling my undead consumes my stamina, so I focused on training that aspect. Of course, the main reason is the boost from my devil fruit. My recovery rate is far beyond a normal person's. Is that so? Devil fruits have abilities like that? Yeah, zone-type devil fruits grant significant enhancements to the user's physical abilities. In the East Blue, devil fruits were legendary items to most people. Details about their different types were even less known. Reiner patiently explained it to Zoro. Wait a minute. Based on what you're saying, wouldn't Logia types be invincible? Zoro was astonished after hearing the explanation. Being able to transform one's body into an element sounded like something out of a fantasy tale. Not necessarily invincible. There are still ways to counter them. Reiner went on to explain Sea Stone and Hockey to Zoro, leaving him stunned. Well, you'll see these things for yourself eventually. Is that so? The sea truly holds all kinds of wonders. Zoro said with fascination. That man probably possesses the kind of power you mentioned too. And here I was thinking about challenging him after setting sail. Looks like I'm still far too lacking. You mean the world's strongest swordsman, right? He could probably beat you without even using a sword, ha ha ha. If he appeared before you right now, would you challenge him? Hearing this, Zoro glanced at Reiner, thought for a moment, and said, I don't know. Probably, yes. Is that so? Figures, you stubborn mule. Ironhead King, huh? Oh, nothing. Reiner gave a slight cough, silently roasting, commenting in his mind. Old times had Daredevil, who was courage incarnate. And you, my friend. You are Daredevil incarnate. Translator's note, implying reckless bravery rather than just courage, and so, 2 days passed. The Going Merry finally carried them to the waters near the Kanamai Islands. This was an archipelago composed of over 20 small islands, each with its own village. Without exception, all were under Arlong's rule. Everyone was forced to pay fees, failure to pay meant death. Several villages had even been completely wiped out. Let's head to Kokoyasi village first. If we go straight to Arlong Park, our ship will probably be destroyed before we even get close, Nami said quietly, her face grim. Her mood was written all over her face, and the others remained silent. Reiner summoned 2 undead to handle the ship's helm. Following Nami's directions, the Going Merry slowly sailed towards Kokoyasi village. It's pirates. Pirates are here. Quick, go find Genzo. Wait, look. Isn't that Nami up there? The villagers were clearly thrown into disarray by the Merry's appearance, but soon they spotted Nami standing at the bow. I'm back, everyone. It's Nami. She's back. Quick, go tell Genzo and Nojiko. No need, we'll head straight over. Okay then. By the way, Nami, these pirates behind you. Several villagers at the port eyed the crew with a degree of caution. Nami smiled and waved dismissively. Don't worry, they're not bad people. They're my nakama. Is that so? Well, anyway, it's good that you're safe, Nami. Then I'll head back now, everyone. Goodbye. With that, Nami led them towards the village. Occasionally, they saw houses that had been completely overturned. Although they had heard about it from Nami, seeing it firsthand still made them marvel at the astonishing strength of the fishmen. Hey, are you kidding me? Are we really going to fight monsters like that? Usopp was already starting to tremble. Nami led the way, speaking without turning back. Arlong's crew doesn't know we're here yet. If you want to back out, now's the time. I won't say anything if you just leave. Don't underestimate us, stupid woman. I can do that kind of thing too. The only one on the ship who called Nami stupid woman was Zoro. Reiner had no doubt Zoro could flip a house. In terms of sheer wrist strength, even Luffy couldn't compare. Though when Luffy fought, the tension generated by stretching his rubber body significantly increased his actual attack power. We already said you're our navigator. We're not going to give up. Luffy's face wore a rare serious expression. Reiner lit a cigarette and followed behind. Soon, the group arrived at Nami's tangerine grove. As they approached, they heard the sounds of an argument coming from within. Stop it. This is all money Nami worked painstakingly hard to save. What saved money? This was all stolen. It's illicit funds and should be confiscated. Damn it. Can you even call yourselves Marines acting like this? Oh no. Hearing the commotion, Nami gasped, gritted her teeth, and rushed into the tangerine grove. Damn it. Chapter 11, Arlong Park. The group followed Nami quickly into the tangerine grove. As soon as they entered, they saw a young woman with short blue hair anxiously and angrily confronting a group of Marines. Are you okay, Nojiko? Nami rushed forward to Nojiko's side, then immediately turned her glare towards the Marines opposite them. Before she could ask anything, a shifty-eyed Marine officer with 3 long whiskers on each cheek stepped forward. I am Captain Nezumi of Marine Branch 16. We received intelligence that stolen funds are hidden here. Now, all these illicit funds are to be confiscated. Captain Nezumi had a treacherous look on his face. As he spoke, he gestured behind him, where several subordinates were digging up a wooden chest filled with treasure. Nami's face darkened, but she didn't act rashly, her mind racing. How did the Marines know about this place? I've always been so careful. Besides Nojiko, no one knows where the money is hidden, and Nojiko would absolutely, 10,000% never betray me. Could it be? At this thought, Nami nearly ground her teeth to dust, forcing out a low growl through clenched teeth. You damn bastards. What are you talking about? This captain doesn't quite understand. Did Arlong's pirates send you here? Whoa, Arlong and his associates are a legitimate organization that pays its taxes on time. They're certainly not pirates. You. What kind of Marines are you? Nami was so furious she could barely speak. Nojiko stepped forward and put an arm around her, afraid Nami's agitation might lead to worse consequences. Were. Just then, the grating sound of chainsaws suddenly erupted. The attention of all the Marines instantly snapped towards the source. They saw a terrifying figure with 3 massive chainsaws protruding from its body rushing towards them at high speed. What is that thing? Quick, shoot it. Stop him. It wasn't just the Marines who panicked. Nami also turned back and yelled at Reiner and the others, wait. If you attack the Marines. Do pirates care about that kind of thing? Luffy interrupted Nami, charging forward in a rage. Bang. 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 Bullets rained down, but they had absolutely no effect on the Chainsaw Devil or Luffy. Neither figure faltered in the slightest, reaching the Marines in the blink of an eye. Guns don't work on them. Damn it, what kind of monsters are these? You idiots. Hurry up and protect me. Captain Nezumi cursed furiously, scrambling backward in panic, trying to hide among his men. However, the soldiers were completely ineffective as a barrier. Gum. Whip. Luffy stretched out his leg in a powerful whip kick, sweeping away the Marines in front. The Chainsaw Devil headed straight for Captain Nezumi. Whir. The grating sound echoed from right behind Captain Nezumi. Like fingernails scraping glass, the irritating noise made his skin crawl. Wait a minute. Who on earth are you people? I'm a Marine captain. If you attack me. Schlick. Before he could finish, a spinning chainsaw slashed viciously across his chest. A gruesome wound instantly appeared, blood pouring out relentlessly. Captain Nezumi. The surrounding Marines watched in horror as their captain collapsed, wailing in agony, yet not a single one stepped forward to help him. Fear contorted Nezumi's face. He sat paralyzed, desperately trying to push himself backward with his feet, screaming and begging for mercy, Please, don't kill me. I'll give you money. Lots and lots of money. However, the chainsaw devil remained silent, simply stalking closer step by step. Ah. No. Street stop. Under the menacing threat of the two terrifying chainsaws, Captain Nezumi bid farewell to the world amidst pain and terror. Captain Nezumi is dead. Run. Devil. He's a devil. Seeing the Marines scatter in panic, Reiner promptly recalled the chainsaw devil. He had no particular penchant for killing for fun. Let's go. Straight to Arlong. Lead the way, Nami. Luffy spoke coldly, pulling his straw hat down low over his eyes. It was clear he was in a very bad mood. Oh, okay. Okay. Nami stammered in agreement, still trembling. Everything had happened too fast, she hadn't fully processed it yet. You guys were too careless. Zoro emerged from the tangerine grove, holding two fishmen. They had likely been sent by Arlong to secretly watch the Marines, preventing Captain Nezumi from pocketing the money himself. He tossed the two fishmen onto the ground. Both had deep sword wounds and were no longer breathing. Not bad, Zoro. Very alert, Reiner praised with a smile. Nojiko looked at the group, trembling slightly. Nami, who are these people? It's okay, Nojiko. They're my nakama. We came back this time. Nami's eyes flashed with determination. To overthrow Arlong. Wait, Nami. Don't say any more, Nojiko. My mind is made up. I trust my nakama. Luffy, Reiner, Zoro. Let's go. Nami pulled her hand away from Nojiko's grasp and walked off without looking back, leaving Nojiko standing alone, stunned. Nami. Watching the group head towards Arlong Park, Nojiko's expression was complicated. Inside Arlong Park. Beneath a tall, imposing tower, a group of fishmen laughed and played in a swimming pool. Under a long awning nearby, a row of deck chairs was set up. A robust purple-skinned fishman lounged in one, characterized by a long, sharp, saw-like nose, a mouthful of pointed teeth, a felt hat atop disheveled hair. Jaya ha 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 ha. I wonder what kind of expression Nami will make when she finds out all the money she saved for years has been completely looted. Arlong laughed boisterously, his surrounding officers chiming in with agreement. That was a brilliant move, boss. But Nami will probably guess that we colluded with the Marines, right? So what if she knows? Can she possibly resist me? Jaya ha 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 ha. When the time comes, we'll just make her save up another 100 million, and then we'll harvest it from her again. Anyway, as long as the village is under my control, she can never defy me. Jaya ha ha ha. Arlong's cruel laughter echoed throughout the park. Speaking of which, Hatchin escorted Captain Nezumi and his men over quite a while ago. He should be back. Boom, before Arlong could finish, a massive explosion sounded. The main gate of the park was violently blown off its hinges, crashing down and pinning several nearby fishmen underneath. What happened? Hey, are you guys okay? Who did this? The huge commotion drew everyone's attention. Arlong frowned, his gaze turning cold as he looked towards the entrance. Through the thick smoke, a familiar figure with orange hair slowly walked in, accompanied by several others. Jaya ha ha ha, it's Nami. Arlong recognized Nami among them, then looked mockingly at her companions. Well now, looks like this isn't exactly a friendly visit. You're Arlong, right? Luffy shouted, his face grim, walking straight towards Arlong, who was surrounded by several fishmen. Reiner's eyes burned with intensity as he scanned the park, taking in the various fishmen in and around the pool watching them. 2, 4, 8, 18. TSK, not bad at all. He was already overjoyed internally. Fishmen were naturally excellent swimmers, and their physical strength was typically 10 times that of humans. Whether used as deckhands for chores or as combat grunts, they would be extremely useful. Chapter 12, Despicable? Yes, that's me. Nami, what are you doing? We're talking to you, damn it. Mere humans. How dare you ignore us? Anger flared on the fishmen's faces. Ever since they arrived in the East Blue, they had never encountered humans this arrogant. Get them. Take them down. Several nearby fishmen charged towards the group with ferocious expressions. Zing. A slight smirk touched Zoro's lips as he drew his swords first, lunging towards the charging fishmen. Small fry like you shouldn't interrupt. The twin swords in Zoro's hands radiated a chilling light. In the blink of an eye, he was before the fishmen, unleashing a flurry of flashing blades. Schlick. 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 Instantaneously, the leading fishmen collapsed into pools of blood. Bastard! What did you do? Arlong gritted his teeth, roaring in a low voice, how dare you harm my brethren? He was an extreme racist. In his heart, humans were nothing but lowly, inferior beings, while his fellow fishmen were paramount. These guys aren't small fry. Don't let the brothers waste their lives needlessly. Chu, Kyurubi. You two go. Yes. Boss Arlong. Following the order, several officers stepped forward, confronting the intruders. The fishman called Kyurubi was tall, with long fins on his arms, his hair tied in two buns, and a long braid down his back. King Naza. Reiner thought, his gaze shifting to the other fishman. That one was a kissing fishman, tall and thin, with long lips and a touch of blush on his cheeks. Nami, what is the meaning of this? The kissing fishman, Chu, glared at Nami. The bun-haired fishman, Kyurubi, snorted contemptuously. Humphrey. I told you long ago this woman couldn't be trusted. We came here today to declare war. Nami glared furiously at Arlong further back, shouting through gritted teeth, Arlong. Today, I officially leave your crew and join the Straw Hat Pirates. Oh? Arlong stared at Nami with amusement, mocking her, meaning, they're the helpers you found? Just them? Ha ha ha. Don't make me die laughing, Nami. Considering your talent, I'll give you one more chance. As long as you continue drawing sea charts for me, I can let bygones be bygones and spare you. Hey. Draw sea charts for you? Nami lifted her somber face. Recalling how she worked day and night in that small, dark, suffocating measuring room, constantly under the threat of cold steel, her expression gradually twisted into a snarl. She roared at Arlong, I wish you dead even in my dreams. Arlong. In that case, you can all just die here. Arlong grinned ferociously, stood up, reached down, and ripped the deck chair bolted to the floor right out, roots and all, hurling it towards them. Is Boss Arlong going to fight himself? These humans brought this upon themselves. Reiner had already summoned his 3 powerful undead minions. The Katana Devil raised its hand and sliced the flying iron chair in two. Luffy leaped through the gap and charged towards Arlong. You think you're worthy of Boss Arlong fighting you personally? Just as Kyurubi and Chu were about to intercept, the Chainsaw Devil and the Wolverine Summon moved to block them. What the hell are these things? Is this some strange race? No, cyborgs. Kyurubi and Chu stared in astonishment at the two suddenly appearing undead. Even having traveled the Grand Line, they were taken aback. Meanwhile, Luffy had already reached Arlong. He stretched his arm far back, then rapidly contracted it, whipping it towards Arlong. Gum gum. Pistol. Luffy's fist, filled with rage, slammed into Arlong's face unexpectedly. Arlong was sent flying backward instantly, crashing heavily against a wall and sliding down like soft mud. Arlong-san. His arm stretched. Arlong stood up, frowning deeply, and wiped a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth. A devil fruit user? Seems I underestimated you. However, don't think having a devil fruit makes you invincible. Without another word, Arlong charged at Luffy. He dodged Luffy's punch, ducked low, and aimed a heavy blow at Luffy's abdomen. However, Luffy didn't dodge, pulling back his fist and punching towards Arlong's face. Bazooka. The force of the blow contorted Arlong's face, slamming his head hard onto the ground, instantly cracking the ground and creating a deep crater. Simultaneously, Luffy was knocked back by Arlong's punch, but being rubber, blunt attacks had no effect on him. This was why he chose to trade blows. It had to be said, Luffy's combat instincts were top tier. Cough. Cough. Arlong spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing Luffy press forward again, he braced one hand on the ground and plunged the other into the swimming pool. Water shot. What? Massive water bullets materialized instantly in front of Luffy, hitting the astonished Straw Hat Captain and sending him flying back. At the same time, Arlong, realizing blunt force was ineffective against Luffy, ran towards a room to retrieve his sawed-off sword, Garibachi. Cutting back to Reiner's side, Zoro was already engaged with Chu, while Kyurubi was being suppressed by Reiner's Katana Devil. The remaining Chainsaw Devil and Wolverine Summon were steadily cutting down the surrounding fishmen grunts who swarmed them. As for Nami and Usopp. Nice one. Go get him. The two were hiding behind a wall providing moral support, joined, of course, by Reiner. If things keep going like this, we'll definitely win. Nami couldn't suppress the grin spreading across her face as she watched the battle unfold. She never expected Luffy alone could fight Arlong so evenly. About time, Reiner thought, overjoyed by the performance of his two undead. He began moving around the battlefield, touching corpses to collect templates. Hope Luffy keeps him busy for a while longer. If these fishmen scatter and dive into the sea, they'll be hard to catch, Reiner thought. This was why he wasn't pressing the advantage with all his summons to take down Arlong immediately. As long as Arlong hadn't fallen, these fishmen wouldn't lose their fighting spirit. And he would have a continuous supply of undead templates to collect. He even intentionally had the Chainsaw Devil duo hold back slightly, otherwise, these fishmen might have lost the nerve to attack after just a few encounters. He was purely fishing for templates here. What are you doing to my comrades? A deep, resonant voice sounded from behind him. Busted? Reiner turned to see an octopus fishman with 6 arms, carrying a large water pot on his back, staring at him. Hatchin? Reiner blurted out instinctively. Eh? You know me? No, wait. What are you doing to my comrades? Hatchin demanded angrily, looking at the fallen fishman near Reiner. He had been sent to pick up a marine who looked like a rat, but after waiting by the shore for ages, no one showed up. He went inland to check, only to find the marine Arlong wanted him to meet already dead. Seeing this, Hatchin immediately returned to report to Arlong, only to stumble upon this massacre. Bodies strewn everywhere wasn't an exaggeration. Hatchin, you're back. Great. Quick, help us. Several fishmen spotted Hatchin and yelled urgently. Reiner pointed towards the 2 undead currently cutting down fishmen. Your comrades? Those 2 killed them. I don't know them. Eh? Is that so? Sorry for misunderstanding you. Ah, no problem. Go settle the score with them. You 2 bastards. Taste my 6-sword style. Hatchin drew his 6 swords and charged towards the 2 undead. No wonder he helped Zoro get to Kokoyasi village in the original story despite Zoro cutting down a bunch of fishmen. So gullible. The instant Hatchin turned his back, Reiner raised his rifle and aimed squarely at him. He didn't want to be associated with his undead abilities for now, so he tried to avoid using them in plain sight whenever possible. Taking cheap shots from the shadows was definitely the best approach. Yes, I'm despicable. I'm underhanded. Correct. Reiner pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang. Chapter 13, Do you even understand assassins? Watch out behind you. Brother Hueco. 2 fishmen by the pool screamed in terror watching Reiner, but before their warning could reach Hatchin's ears, the bullet arrived first. Hatchin, who was charging forward, didn't even have time to feel the pain in his back before he stumbled and fell heavily to the ground. Whir. Schlick. Schlick. The 2 fishmen by the pool were also quickly dispatched by the chainsaw devil. Hatchin pushed himself up with his arms, laboriously turning his head to look at the sinisterly grinning Reiner, a trace of unwillingness on his face. You. Despicable. With that, he passed out. What's that? What did he just say? Reiner walked over indignantly, reversed his grip on the rifle, and tapped Hatchin's octopus head again for good measure. Who could be more despicable than you guys? Reiner scoffed. He scanned the area. The fishmen were basically dealt with. Those who dared to fight were all lying on the ground, the rest had almost all fled. Zoro had already defeated the fishman officer Chu and joined Luffy in his battle against Arlong. Reiner then looked towards the Katana Devil fighting Kyuubi. Damn ghost thing. Kyuubi cursed under his breath, staring grimly at the Katana Devil before him. He was being suppressed in both speed and strength, and his opponent's sword skills were superb. This terrifying wrist strength, combined with this bizarre appearance. Is it a devil fruit user or a cyborg? Kyuubi charged forward automatically, swinging the massive sword-shaped fin on his arm towards the Katana Devil. Fishman karate, arm blade slash. The Katana Devil crossed its twin swords, meeting the incoming fin head-on with a powerful slash. Schlick. The long sword sliced through, directly severing Kyuubi's sword-like fin. The Katana Devil didn't stop, raising its sword again and adding another gash to Kyuubi's chest. Reiner wasn't surprised. This summon was made from Zoro's template, its physical stats and combat techniques were 100% replicated. Combined with the highly compatible 3-sword style, its strength was infinitely close to Zoro's. It would be a waste if it couldn't even suppress one fishman officer. Looks like I have to use that technique. Kyuubi gritted his teeth, his expression grave. He extended one hand straight forward, placed the other at his waist, and assumed a formal karate stance. Fishman karate, 1,000-tile true punch. A heavy fist carrying immense force shot out, even creating an explosive sound as it broke the air. The Katana Devil dragged its twin swords along the ground, striking sparks, and rushed towards Kyuubi's fist. Just as they were about to collide, it abruptly bent its knees, crouched low, gathered power, and leaped forward in a single bound. The 2 figures instantly crossed paths. A cold glint of steel accompanied by the low hum of a blade. The Katana Devil slowly turned back, flicking the blood from its sword onto the ground. 2-sword style AI, cross slash. 2 intersecting wounds appeared on Kyuubi's chest. Blood spurted out suddenly, and his body went limp, slowly collapsing. Only Arlong left now, huh? Reiner looked towards the base of the giant tower-like building, the only place where there was still movement. Luffy and Zoro were locked in fierce combat with Arlong, who was clearly at a disadvantage. Reiner recalled the Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil, leaving only the Wolverine undead, made from Kuro's template, to melt into the shadows. With its explosive speed used for sneak attacks, even Arlong under normal circumstances wouldn't be able to defend against it, let alone while being pressed in a fierce battle. Meanwhile, on the battlefield. Sharingan darts. Arlong bent his knees and suddenly pushed off the ground, launching himself towards Zoro like an arrow loosed from a bowstring, opening his bloody maw wide, ready to bite down hard with his rows of sharp teeth. Zoro didn't dodge, instead raising his twin swords behind his back, poised to strike. Tiger Hunt. As their figures crossed, a deep gash had already appeared on Arlong's chest. However, Arlong, possessing incredible vitality, gritted his teeth against the pain upon landing and immediately charged towards Zoro's back. Gum gum. Spear. Luffy slammed the soles of his feet together, delivering a powerful and heavy kick that struck Arlong's abdomen, interrupting his charge. Damn it! Arlong roared through gritted teeth, his eyes fixed intently on the two, desperately trying to think of a way to break the deadlock. If this continues, I'll definitely die here. Arlong parried their attacks while scanning his surroundings. Suddenly, he spotted Nami outside the main fight. A glint flashed in Arlong's eyes. Although there are two others with her, they don't look strong. If I can just grab her as a hostage. Making up his mind in an instant, Arlong used the momentum from being knocked back by Luffy again to turn and charge towards Reiner's group. However, just at that moment. Schlick. Schlick. Arlong, poised to charge, suddenly felt his legs weaken as intense pain shot through his waist. Looking down, he saw several sharp claws embedded deeply into his side. Arlong looked up in disbelief, following the claws to their owner, a ferocious-looking man staring coldly and silently at him. Arlong hadn't sensed any presence from this person, not even a hint of killing intent. If he hadn't moved, Arlong wouldn't have even registered him as a living being, like a pebble or a leaf incapable of drawing his attention. Arlong formed his hand into a blade and struck down with all his might at the man's neck, knocking the Wolverine Undead's head completely askew. Arlong gritted his teeth, grabbed the Wolverine Undead's hands, and painfully ripped the claws out, staggering as he continued his charge towards Nami. However. Schlick. Schlick. The familiar, intense pain flared up from his waist again. Arlong turned his head back in disbelief. Why? But Arlong's pupils contracted. The man whose neck he had seemingly broken was now, with his head hanging crookedly, plunging his claws into Arlong's waist again. Reiner winced just watching. Usopp covered his mouth, trembling. Why does this guy keep going for the kidneys? Did Kuro have this kind of quirk in life? Did his fighting style get preserved too? Shing. The claws were ripped out once more. Blood surged, and Arlong collapsed to the ground, unable to rise again. He had already sustained too many injuries fighting Luffy and Zoro, and his stamina was nearly depleted. These final two stabs to the waist were the last straw that broke the camel's back. Arlong is down? Nami stared incredulously at Arlong lying motionless in a pool of blood. That powerful, brutal figure, the lingering nightmare that had haunted her for so long, had actually fallen one day? It's over, it's over. Let's go. Is it over? Nami looked at Reiner, who had jumped out from behind the wall, as if waking from a dream. Her eyes suddenly felt moist. Forcing back tears of overwhelming joy and relief, she nodded firmly. Let's go. Reiner led Nami and Usopp out from behind the wall. Nice job, Luffy, Zoro. And Reiner's undead. You'd better get that right, Nami. Yeah, I know, you're strong. So perfunctory. Finally, under my brilliant leadership, we defeated Arlong. Good work, you guys. Ah, right, couldn't have done it without you, Usopp. You're being perfunctory too. Reiner, Nami, and Usopp walked over to Arlong's body, meeting up with Luffy and Zoro. The group gathered around. Looking at the barely breathing Arlong on the ground, Reiner handed his gun to Nami. You want to do it? Nami hesitated for a moment, looking down at Arlong. Her gaze gradually hardened with resolve, and she took the gun. The others watched silently. Everyone present had seen blood before. Luffy, at age 6, had witnessed Lucky Roo execute a mountain bandit with a point-blank headshot. Zoro had spent the last 2.5 years making a living by hunting down wanted criminals. And Nami didn't even need mentioning. She had witnessed Belmere being shot and killed by Arlong while protecting her and Nojiko. She was only 8 years old at the time. No one here was naive enough to think being a pirate was child's play. They had all staked their lives to go out to sea for their own goals and dreams. Click clack. Nami racked the slide, pressing the muzzle against Arlong's head. Facing her mother's killer, the demon who had subjected Kokoyasi village to years of oppression, Nami's eyes showed unprecedented determination. She had dreamed countless times of Arlong dying. Without any hesitation, she pulled the trigger. Bang. After the gunshot echoed, It felt as if a giant boulder that had been crushing her, making it hard to breathe for years, had finally shattered and vanished without a trace at that very moment. Nami let out a long sigh of relief. Her body suddenly went limp, and she collapsed onto the ground, the gun falling loosely beside her. "Wipe the blood off your face." Reiner handed her a handkerchief and patted her shoulder. He crouched down, and an azure flame emerged from his palm, covering Arlong's body. Chapter 14, Who Said Undead Can't Be Weapons? "Nami, we came to save you. Let's get Arlong and his crew." Just then, outside Arlong Park, throngs of villagers surged forward, faces filled with anger, clutching simple weapons in their hands. Hearing the commotion, the crew turned to look. The man leading the charge wore a dark brown guard uniform, with a distinctive pinwheel attached to his cap. His body was covered in stitched-up wounds. "Danzō." Nami turned her head, looking surprised at the newcomers. "Why is everyone here? Could it be Nojiko? That old guy looks weird. He's got a pinwheel growing on his head," Luffy remarked curiously, wearing his straw hat. Reiner understood immediately, guessing the villagers' intentions. He turned and slipped towards Arlong's tower. "Nami, you handle things here for a bit. I'm going to go check for loot." A while later, inside Arlong's room, Reiner looked at the scattered cash he had managed to gather. After a quick count, it came to roughly 400 million Bailey. He scratched his golden hair and sighed, much less than I expected. It was definitely a huge sum, but still less than he had anticipated. Arlong's crew had controlled over 20 villages here, and aside from the few completely destroyed, the rest had been under his exploitation for years. A monthly life preservation fee of 100,000 Bailey per adult and 50,000 per child. Even a small village must have around 100 people. How could they only have amassed this much after so many years? Thinking this, Reiner couldn't help but curse under his breath. Do these bastards really know how to blow money? Oh well, at least it's more than enough to feed Luffy. Right? Reiner couldn't help but recall Luffy's ability to devour 100 million Bailey worth of food in a single banquet. Reiner sighed again, gathered up all the money, shouldered his backpack, and left. Walking out the door, he bumped right into Nami, who was about to enter. "Nami? What are you doing here?" "I came to get the sea chart side ruby for." "What's that you're carrying behind you?" Nami stared intently at Reiner, a fiery glint in her eyes. Reiner. Hee. 50-50? Dame. No, 40-60. Dame. No. Soon, the group returned to the village with the villagers. Reiner and the others went to rest at Nami and Nojiko's house. "This is dried tangerine peel we sun-dried ourselves. Please try some." Nojiko brought over several cups of dried tangerine peel tea, offering them with a smile. When Nami had led them towards Arlong Park earlier, Nojiko had immediately gone to find Danzō, which led to the villagers marching over later. "Delicious. Yeah, not bad. I'm glad you like it. Our poor little village doesn't really have much to offer as thanks. I'll pack some dried peels for you to take with you later. Don't talk about rewards. We've already received the best treasure. Is that so? Nami will surely be very happy with you all." Nojiko left, content, to pack the tangerine peels as a thank you gift. Having just finished fighting, the crew members were all rather hungry, lounging weakly on the sofa. Grumble. I'm gonna die." Luffy flopped down listlessly. The villagers were already cooking, preparing a feast to reward them. Reiner lit a cigarette and began contemplating Arlong's template. With a wave of his hand, several dancing azure flames appeared. Reiner could faintly sense the flames representing Arlong and Zoro attracting each other. "Should I merge them?" Reiner murmured. Yes, templates with sufficient compatibility could be fused. However, their stats wouldn't simply stack. Instead, the fusion would take the higher value for each individual attribute, compensating for weaknesses with strengths. Both Arlong and Zoro possessed outstanding wrist strength. Additionally, Arlong's bite force was extremely powerful, and Zoro, due to his three-sword style, had also specifically trained his jaw strength. That's why these two templates had a high degree of compatibility. Forget it. It's too wasteful just for that small stat boost. Given Zoro's rate of improvement, I can just update his template later, and his stats will increase directly. He had other ideas for Arlong's template. Rather than Arlong's wrist strength, Reiner valued his steel-like nose and rock-crushing teeth more. Especially the characteristic that his teeth could continuously regenerate. After contemplating for a while, Reiner focused his thoughts, and a void crack opened in midair. Oh ha ha ha. "Reiner, are you making a new monster?" Luffy's eyes lit up instantly upon seeing Reiner's action. "A robot. Make a robot this time, Reiner." "I already told you, I can't make robots." "Then what are you planning to make?" "A weapon. Is it a laser gun?" From within the void crack, A silvery white sword hilt gradually emerged. Reiner reached out, grasped the hilt, and pulled sharply. A double-edged sword, entirely silvery white with sharp serrated edges on both sides, appeared in his hand. The pommel was a ferocious skull about the size of a fist, with a sharp point like Arlong's saw nose protruding from it. Looks kinda plain," Luffy said with a look of disdain. Reiner, however, showed a strange smile. "What if I told you? It can extend?" "Extend? Isn't that just like me?" Reiner aimed the bone sword in his hand towards a large rock outside the door. With a thought. In the next instant, the sword's blade abruptly shot forward, the saw-like tip rocketing towards the boulder. Boom. The massive rock instantly shattered into pieces. Wait, that move is... Yeah, Arlong's shark on something or other arrow? But it's far more versatile than that. As Reiner spoke, the bone sword suddenly bent, its tip whipping back around to stare straight at Luffy, like a snake. It's ultimately an undead creature. You can think of it as a bone snake, I just shaped the tail end into a hilt. Technically, it was a chain sword. It could extend because the blade was composed of bone teeth, utilizing the regenerative properties of Arlong's teeth, which could be regrown by consuming stamina. Chain swords are very useful weapons, but the techniques are difficult to master. However, Reiner thought, do undead creatures even need to practice? He could control it freely, making it follow his will with a single thought. It could be a sword, a whip, or even... The bone sword suddenly coiled, wrapping around itself layer by layer to form a silvery white round shield covered in sharp spikes, the ferocious skull sitting right at the center. If anyone mistook it for just a shield and got close, Reiner could give them a demonstration of shoot him dead, Shenso in minutes. Translator's note, Bleach reference to Jinokamaru's Banchi, implying a sudden, deadly piercing attack from the shield. Oh ha ha ha, it transforms. Reiner, make one for me quick. Reiner simply tossed the bone chain sword to him, directly commanding the undead weapon to obey Luffy's commands. Luffy eagerly ran outside with his new toy, having a blast. But less than 3 minutes later, he ran back crestfallen and dejected. "I'm so hungry. Dinner's ready, everyone. Alright. Banquet time." Hearing the call from outside, Luffy immediately dashed out, with the others following close behind. "Reiner, wait a second. I want to talk to you about something." "What's up?" Reiner turned back to look at Nami, who had called out to him. Was she looking a bit shy? Could it be? About the money we got from Arlong. Dame. No, that's not it. I wanted to ask if we could leave some for the villagers of Kokoyasi. Sure. How much is good? 50 million? Take whatever you want. Then. 100 million? That's fine too. Then how about? Hold on. Are you sure any amount added after this isn't just going straight into your own pocket? Reiner couldn't help but interrupt. Nami's face suddenly turned even redder. Ahem. 100 million it is, then. Alright, little miss looks decent but hides it well, huh? Playing coy, were you? Chapter 15, Sanji. The next day, the weather was clear, not a cloud in the sky. On the boundless azure sea, the Going Merry sailed peacefully. On deck, Reiner, Luffy, and Usopp sat in a circle, expressions grave. Nami and Zoro sat slightly apart, observing closely. Testing the waters. A 3. A small raise. A 4. Pass. You don't even have a 4? You're not doing so hot, Luffy. Cut it out. Don't think you can trick me into breaking my pair. Usopp gritted his teeth, looking at Luffy. This guy. He's gotten smarter. Most of the time, sailing was quite boring, especially after Reiner's miscellaneous summons took over all the chores. So, Reiner taught them how to play poker. When Luffy and Usopp were fishing, Reiner and Zoro would lift weights. During breaks, they would gather to play cards, with Nami and Zoro often joining in to watch the fun. As for Reiner's card luck, he was basically a charity player. He didn't mind, though, considering it like distributing pocket money to everyone. It's worth mentioning that he was the one managing the crew's funds. Saving? Not his style. But acquiring money. He excelled at that, so saving wasn't necessary. Except when it came to Luffy. If you dared give Luffy money, he'd genuinely squander it all. Suddenly, an undead hawk flew down from the crow's nest. It landed on Reiner's shoulder and pecked gently, its beak pointing towards the ship's bow. This was one of several hawks Usopp had helped Reiner hunt back in Kokoyasi village yesterday. Reiner had turned them into undead specifically to act as lookouts when he wasn't available, which was most of the time. Seeing the signal, Reiner immediately leaped up to the crow's nest. Following the direction the hawk's beak indicated, sure enough, a small green dot was visible in the distance. The sea restaurant Barati. We can finally have a proper feast. Reiner jumped down. Game over, let's settle the score. Shishishi. I won 500,000 Bailey. Luffy grinned widely. Great, another 500,000 down the drain, Reiner thought. Soon, the group arrived at the Barati. It was a giant, 3-story ship floating on the sea, shaped like a fish with an open mouth at the bow. Time to eat. Luffy clutched his newly won 500,000 Bailey and eagerly ran aboard. Hey, wait a minute. Is that a pirate ship? Reiner looked where Usopp was pointing. The massive wreckage of a pirate ship, broken in two, was half submerged in the sea, only the bow and stern sections still floating adrift. That flag belongs to the Krieg pirates. Usopp recognized the allegiance of the wrecked vessel. Hearing this, familiar scenes immediately flashed through Reiner's mind. Hawkeyes, huh? Reiner frowned slightly, his gaze shifting to a small boat moored nearby. The small boat featured a high-backed armchair and several lit candles around it. It was tied to the Barati with a rope. How did such a huge ship sink? No idea. Maybe it got cut? Don't joke around, Reiner. How could anyone cut a ship? Usopp laughed, waving his hand dismissively. The group disembarked and headed straight into the restaurant. The vast dining hall held at least several dozen, perhaps hundreds, of tables, yet it was eerily quiet, with not a single customer in sight. No, wait, there were two. In a corner, a man in a white shirt was dining quietly. A black hat rested beside him on the table, and a black coat was draped over his chair. His movements were subtle and elegant, making almost no sound. Reiner glanced at him briefly and paid him no further mind, then looked over at Zoro, who didn't seem to have noticed anything. This silence was quickly shattered. Clang. Clang. Sound of Luffy banging utensils, food. Ha ha ha. I want to order. Order. Coming. Stop making such a racket. A blond man emerged from the kitchen, looking annoyed at the shouting Luffy. The man wore a black suit over a blue striped shirt, clearly having taken care with his appearance. Reiner and the others walked over and sat down with Luffy. What will you gentlemen be having? Sanji asked coolly, holding a notepad and pen to take their orders. Meat. I want 10 servings of meat. 10 servings? Can you even finish that? Sanji looked up at Luffy, his tone sharp. If you waste food in front of me, I won't forgive you. Sanji's attitude took Luffy aback for a moment. He'd never met such an arrogant cook before. Don't worry, his appetite is definitely not a problem. Reiner looked up with a smile, teasing Sanji. If anything, I'm worried he might exhaust you. Oh? Sanji gave Luffy an interested look. This is the first time I've been challenged like this. Go ahead, try me. Luffy, eat to your heart's content today. Money's no object. Really? Luffy exclaimed excitedly, his eyes fixed intensely on Sanji. When it comes to eating, I've never lost. And when it comes to cooking, I've never lost. Sparks flew between the two as their competitive spirits were instantly ignited. So, what would the rest of you like to eat? Sanji turned to the others, but his words died abruptly as his gaze fell upon Nami. The fighting spirit instantly vanished from his face, replaced by pink hearts in his eyes. He dropped to one knee before Nami. Nami was somewhat taken aback, clearly startled by the sudden gesture. An angel. An angel has descended. Sanji fawned, his tone exaggerated. Please allow me to become your captive. Before Nami could even react, a wooden prosthetic leg slammed hard onto Sanji's head. Whack. Ouch. Damn idiot. Harassing the customers again. Zeph scolded, arms crossed. Looks like you don't want to work here anymore. Pack your things and get lost. My restaurant doesn't need a cook like you. Damn old geezer. Sanji glared furiously, jumping up and shouting, no matter how many times you try to kick me out, I won't leave. I'm staying here until you die. What bullshit. I'm gonna live another 100 years. Zeph retorted, turning and heading back to the kitchen. Sanji clicked his tongue, his expression gradually calming. He turned back to Nami with a smile. My apologies for my earlier behavior, my beautiful lady. As compensation, your meal today is on the house. His expression then turned blank as he looked at Reiner and the others. The rest of you pay as normal. Pervy cook, chorused 4 voices. Soon, cooks began bringing out dishes one after another. Sorry for the wait. We heard you're having a duel with Sanji? You've got guts. He even forbade us from helping, said he wants to make sure you leave completely stuffed today. The cooks chatted and smiled, sizing up the crew as they served the food. A showdown between cooks and customers was a rare sight, even after working there for years. They were all excited to watch the spectacle. As the crew ate and drank, they chatted with the cooks. It was only then that they learned the wrecked ship outside was the flagship of the Krieg pirate armada, led by Pirate Admiral Krieg. Earlier that morning, a pirate named Jin had escaped from the navy. Near death from starvation, He was saved by Sanji. However, after returning, Jin brought back the Krieg pirates. Zeph didn't hold a grudge and gave them food. But once full, Krieg repaid their kindness with betrayal, intending to plunder the Barati. This Krieg guy is a real bastard. No wonder there aren't any customers here. So what happened after that? You all seem fine? Hearing this, the cooks exchanged glances, then spoke cautiously. See that man in the corner? He cut the Krieg pirates' flagship in half with a single slash. Krieg and his entire crew were wiped out by him alone. The cook leaned in, whispering conspiratorially into their ears. Oh, one slash? Cut a ship that huge? Nami and Usopp gasped incredulously, covering their mouths. See his eyes? That's the world's greatest swordsman. Hawkeye's Mihawk. Just then, Mihawk, in the corner, slowly stood up. He put on his hat, draped his coat over his shoulders, and casually slung the black blade resting nearby onto his back. He addressed the cooks coolly. Check, please. Chapter 16, Defeat. Hawkeye's. Zoro was astonished to hear the name. He shot to his feet, his gaze fixed intently on the man in the corner. His hands rested on his sword hilts, unconsciously gripping them tighter. What's wrong, Zoro? The others asked, puzzled. Seeing this, Reiner knew exactly what Zoro intended to do, but the power gap is too huge. Should I stop him? Reiner couldn't help but think. He couldn't guarantee the story would unfold as it originally did. If Zoro died right here. However, when he looked up and saw the resolute determination in Zoro's eyes, he abandoned the thought of intervening. This was Zoro's own path. Besides, even if he tried to persuade him, Zoro definitely wouldn't listen. Hawkeyes walked straight towards the exit, not sparing the intensely staring Zoro a second glance. Wait. Zoro shouted. You're the world's greatest swordsman, right? With that, he drew one sword and pointed it at Mihawk. I challenge you. I have no interest in the weak. Hawkeyes spoke coolly, continuing towards the door without pause. Don't be so arrogant, bastard. Zoro gritted his teeth and chased after him. Hey, Zoro. Nami called out urgently, then looked at the others. Quick, stop him. Didn't you hear? That guy cut a pirate ship in half with one slash. It's no use, Nami. Luffy had also put down his food, his expression serious. I promised Zoro I wouldn't stand in his way. Ah, let's go, Reiner sighed, getting up and heading towards the door. The few cooks stood stunned for a moment, then immediately ran towards the back kitchen. Hey, everyone come out and look. That customer is challenging Hawkeyes. Seriously? Hey, wait, isn't that guy a really famous bounty hunter? It really is him. Roar Zoro. The back kitchen instantly erupted in commotion as cooks poured out of the restaurant. Sanji, looking puzzled, put down his kitchen utensils and came out. Honestly, what's with this group? Do they love dueling this much? On the deck outside the restaurant, Zoro blocked Mihawk's path, the Wado Akamanji already clenched between his teeth. His purpose for setting sail was to find this very man before him. To defeat him, make his name resound throughout the seas, and fulfill the promise he made long ago. An unprecedented longing burned in Zoro's eyes. I admire the look in your eyes. Since that's the case, consider this some post-meal exercise. As Mihawk spoke, he removed the cross pendant from his chest, unsheathing a small knife from within. I don't carry a smaller blade than this. Come. On the second floor deck, besides Reiner and the others, stood the Barati cooks led by Sanji, all watching the duel with eager anticipation. The world's greatest swordsman versus Roronoa Zoro. I never thought I'd witness a duel of this caliber. I can't even imagine what it will look like when they fight. All the cooks stared intently at the scene below. They only knew both fighters were strong, but they had no concrete concept of how strong. Their own skills were far below either man's level, they could only judge by reputation, and Zoro's fame in the East Blue was already considerable. However, 3 minutes later. Scars on the back. Our swordsman's shame. Would it be rude to laugh right now? Witnessing this famous scene, Reiner found it both infuriating and amusing. While worry flickered in his eyes, his respect for Zoro deepened. Mihawk drew his black blade, Yoru, bringing the battle to a close with one final strike. Turning his back on the fallen Zoro, Mihawk departed with a leisurely stride, leaving only a quiet parting remark, go and become stronger, Roronoa. I will await you atop the throne of the world's strongest swordsman. Lying on the deck, Zoro covered his face with one hand, raising the Wado Akamanji towards the sky, until I defeat him. I will never lose again. It seemed like a declaration for everyone present to hear. And perhaps, also an oath sworn to someone in the heavens above. The duel concluded. Reiner and Usopp immediately rushed down, helping the fallen Zoro to his feet. A ghastly wound stretched across his chest, starting from the upper right and extending across his entire torso. Reiner jumped back onto their ship to grab medical supplies, and the two began bandaging Zoro's injury. Meanwhile, by the restaurant entrance. That idiot is your companion, right? Why didn't you stop him? Sanji lit a cigarette and asked Luffy standing nearby. Luffy glanced at Sanji. That's his dream. Zoro has his own path to follow. Is it necessary to go that far? Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke, looking up. A dream, huh? Is something so big and ethereal really worth staking your life on? That's why it's called a dream, Luffy replied, his tone calm yet firm. Don't you have anything in your heart worth risking your life for? Something worth risking my life for. Leaning against a wall, Sanji closed his eyes. After a long moment, he spoke. Have you ever heard of the All Blue? All Blue? It's a legendary sea where fish from all four oceans gather. They say it's somewhere in the Grand Line. When the old geezer dies, I'll head to the Grand Line. Even if it takes my whole life, I will find that sea. Luffy couldn't help but glance at Sanji, a strange expression crossing his face. We're heading there too. And we happen to need a cook. Come with us. No. I have reasons why I must stay here. What? Didn't you just say you wanted to go to the Grand Line? On the third floor deck, Zeph leaned on the railing with both hands, looking down at Sanji and Luffy below. A faint smile touched his lips as he murmured, You're smiling quite happily, aren't you, brat? Perhaps you've finally found a ship worth boarding. Reiner finished bandaging Zoro and helped him inside the restaurant. Fortunately, the blow hadn't struck his heart. Mihawk had shown appreciation for his talent after all. Although the wound was deep, it only seemed to affect skin and muscle. With Zoro's constitution, he'd recover after some rest. Seeing Zoro wasn't in critical danger, the crew relaxed. Reiner, Nami, and Usopp slowly enjoyed their meal, while Luffy and Sanji continued their own duel. It's worth noting that, under Luffy's persistence, they had made a bet on this contest. If Luffy won, Sanji would join their crew. If Luffy lost, they would never return to the Barity to bother him again, except for Nami. With Luffy's appetite, he's guaranteed to win, Nami said confidently. She had just witnessed yesterday how Luffy had exhausted 5 villagers trying to cook for him. Reiner, however, was skeptical. With Sanji, it's hard to say. I'm already considering how to cheat. Yes, I'm despicable, correct. However, before Reiner could act, someone else in the kitchen made the first move. Sanji, it's time for you to leave here, Zeph stated plainly. Sanji remained unmoved, engrossed in his culinary battle with Luffy, his full attention on the utensils in his hands. I said, you're fired, Sanji, Zeph continued. Only then did Sanji slowly put down his utensils, his expression gradually turning grim. Damn old man. What kind of joke is this? Do you want me to die filled with regret? Go out to sea, Sanji. I don't want to be the chain holding you back. What chains are you talking about? I want to stay here. It has nothing to do with you. Then what about the All Blue? Zeph's voice remained calm. I'll go to sea when you're dead. Instead of waiting to see me off, better tell me while I still have a few years left that the All Blue truly exists. Zeph turned to look out the window, where the blue sky and calm sea reflected each other. Between the two of us, someone has to go see it, don't they? The kitchen gradually fell silent. Sanji lowered his head, taking the cigarette from his lips. His blonde hair hid his face, obscuring the expression beneath the shadows. Bling. Until a large teardrop traced a path down his cheek and fell. He suddenly dropped to his knees with a thud, pressing his hands and forehead firmly against the floor in a deep bow. Thank you. Sanji cried out, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. Old man. I will never forget your great kindness for all eternity. The kitchen was utterly silent, all the other cooks had consciously left when Zeph entered. Zeph looked down at the young man he had raised, his own eyes stinging slightly with tears. But he quickly wiped them away, because an inopportune man had just snuck in. Excuse me, wrong way. Reiner stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, feeling so awkward his toes were practically digging cracks into the floor. This touching scene was a bit embarrassing to walk in on. He looked down at the handful of ants he was holding, undead ants he had just created outside, preparing to sneak in and cause some trouble. But he had stumbled upon this scene right as he entered. Sorry, I didn't see anything. Sanji. Chapter 17, Bounties in the chilly restaurant, only one table still echoed with the occasional sounds of chewing. Luffy, are you alright? Usopp couldn't help but ask worriedly. Luffy's stomach was currently swollen as round as a giant balloon. Yet, he was still grabbing food with both hands, continuously stuffing it into his mouth. So delicious. Luffy swallowed the mouthful of food with a gulp. I've never eaten food this delicious before. I absolutely have to get him on the crew. Nom. He stuffed the food in his hands into his mouth again. Da. Da. Reiner and Sanji emerged from the kitchen side by side. Sanji exhaled a long stream of smoke. Alright, I'll go with you guys. Luffy turned his head, a thrilled smile gradually spreading across his face. I won, hick. I only agreed to join the crew, I didn't admit defeat. Shishishi, okay then, you win. I can't eat hick anymore. Luffy's voice trailed off weakly. With that, he toppled onto the floor, wobbling back and forth like a roly-poly toy with a vacant expression. Nami and Usopp couldn't resist poking Luffy playfully from either side. Honestly, Reiner sighed, rubbing his forehead. Because of your duel, the bill for this meal is probably going to be sky high. A cook with thick arms, resembling Popeye the Sailor Man, rushed over fawningly. Thank you for your patronage. Sir, your total bill comes to 1,200,000 Bailey. So expensive. This is highway robbery. Nami protested immediately and indignantly. Even though Reiner managed the money, these were funds for the entire pirate crew, so naturally, Nami felt the pinch. It's okay, Nami, Reiner waved dismissively. This was, after all, a high-end restaurant famous throughout the East Blue. The high price was expected. Plus, considering Luffy's meal. Here's 10 million Bailey. Use the rest to prepare ingredients for us to take away. Reiner pulled out a thick wad of large denomination bills and handed it over. Alright Sanji, go get your things ready. We'll be leaving shortly. After settling everything, Reiner went outside the restaurant. Krieg commanded a large fleet of 5,000 men, just feeding them would be a huge expense. There was bound to be some treasure or cash on his main ship. Thinking this, Reiner released several dozen fishman undead, ordering them into the sea to salvage the wreck. These were the 60-odd fishman undead Reiner had collected from Arlong Park. To better utilize their natural affinity for water, he had preserved features like webbing and fins. He could shape templates from ordinary humans into fishman forms, but he couldn't grant them innate swimming skills or attributes. Those had to be inherited from the template itself. After a while, Sanji emerged, having packed a large backpack full of things, mostly ingredients, the rest being his kitchen utensils. He joined Luffy and the others. Let's go, Reiner. Okay. Just a second. Reiner replied. Just then, dozens of dark shapes began surfacing from the sea. One by one, fishman-like undead emerged with gurgling sounds. Let's see what we got. Reiner directed the undead ashore and walked over. Some came up empty-handed, while others clutched scattered treasures and soaking wet, crumpled banknotes. Ooh. Seeing this, Nami's eyes turned into Bailey symbols, dollar, as she eagerly approached. Nice job, Reiner. Don't praise me. Doesn't mean I'll give you any. Reiner had the undead move all the treasure onto the ship. After bidding farewell to the Barity, the group set sail. They hadn't been sailing long when a new COO wearing a white cap landed on the ship's railing. Did the price go up again? If it goes up again next time, I'm not buying, you hear? You beast. Bullying even a new COO, Reiner scolded jokingly. None of your business. Nami stuck out her tongue, sat down on a deck chair, and began reading the newspaper. This is your bounty posters. Your plural? Reiner was instantly alarmed, sitting up and taking the bounty posters from Nami. Luffy and the others gathered around curiously upon hearing this. The first poster was indeed Luffy's, a half-body shot of him grinning under his straw hat. Judging by the background, it was taken at Arlong Park. Must have been secretly taken by Nezumi's men? Straw Hat Pirates Captain, Monkey D. Luffy, 30 million. Staring at the long string of zeros below, Usopp gasped, covering his face. Luffy, however, was thrilled. Shishishi. What's next? Are there more? Reiner eagerly pulled off the first poster, his heart sinking slightly. I didn't really step out. Please don't target me. I really don't want a bounty anytime soon. Roronoa's Oro, 16 million. Oh? I got a bounty too? A smirk tugged at Zoro's lips. Reiner found this somewhat strange. If he remembered correctly, Zoro's first bounty should have been 60 million directly after the Alabasta incident. Could it be because he participated in ganging up on Arlong? Reiner pondered. After removing Zoro's poster, only one remained, but the figure on it wasn't Reiner. Knife-saw duo combination? Reiner looked puzzled at the two figures on the poster. The Katana Devil and the Chainsaw Devil got a bounty? This was good news, but why not the Wolverine undead that sneak attacked and finished Arlong? Duo combination bounty, 25 million. A bounty issued for a combination, like Kuro's Mioban brothers? The Marines must have messed up. Why isn't Reiner himself wanted? No, no, no. This is perfect? Absolutely perfect? Reiner quickly checked the newspaper again and found that the Wolverine undead was reported as having perished along with Arlong in a mutual kill. Reiner recalled how Arlong's hand chop had snapped the undead's neck, leaving its head dangling crookedly. In contrast, the katana and chainsaw devils rampaging and slaughtering everything in sight had been clearly photographed. Nami didn't get a bounty, the photographer probably slipped away when Arlong fell. Night descended. On the dark sea, only the faint light from a single small ship shone. At this moment, in the second-floor living area on the Going Merry's deck, Reiner and the crew were celebrating with drinks. "Let's welcome Sanji to the crew. Cheers. Cheers." They were celebrating Sanji's joining. Now Reiner had both a smoking buddy, Sanji, and a drinking buddy, Zoro. All that was missing was... cough cough. The king's left and right arms, his partners in crime. Today was quite a haul. Yeah. Not only did Sanji join, but Reiner also fished up a ton of money. "Stop probing, Nami." Reiner rolled his eyes. The salvage treasure amounted to roughly 50 million Bailey in total. A bit low, mainly because pirates live dangerously, licking blood off blades, never knowing if they'll see tomorrow. When they get money, they tend to squander it quickly. An entire fleet of 5,000 men, and they only had 50 million saved up. "We're getting close to the Grand Line," Nami said, taking a sip of her drink. "We should reach the Twin Capes and enter the Grand Line by noon tomorrow. However, there's an island nearby with a large town. I have a feeling you guys might be interested. Want to stop there to restock supplies?" "You mean Logtown, right?" Sanji spoke with understanding. "It's known as the town of the beginning and the end. Goldie Roger was executed there over 20 years ago." "So cool." Luffy immediately got excited upon hearing this. Speaking of which, Reiner also had some business to take care of in Logtown. After entering the Grand Line, his first target was the two giants on Little Garden, followed by Crocodile. Since he couldn't use armament hockey yet, trying to handle that sand crocodile wasn't very safe. Logtown wasn't the largest town in the East Blue, but due to its location near the Twin Capes and its historical significance, Roger's execution, it was exceptionally prosperous. It was also a place where dragons and fish mingled, good and bad elements mixed. Reiner planned to check the black market for seastone. If the rumors about a certain underground organization operating there were true, he might have a chance to buy some. The night sea was dark, like an endless black fog, wrapping the Going Merry in loneliness and fear. Only the dim yellow light spilling from the cabin, the overlapping silhouettes, and the sounds of laughter and chatter provided a sliver of reassurance. It wasn't alone. The white sheep's head sailed onward silently, slowly moving through the boundless darkness. "I will carry everyone there, no matter where the next stop may be." Chapter 18, The Town of the Beginning and the End. The next morning, a faint glimmer appeared on the sea horizon as the weak dawn light sparkled across the waves. On the crow's nest, Reiner's face flushed slightly in the burgeoning light. His eyes, sensing the light and warmth, slowly opened. "Ah, my head hurts." Reiner sat up, rubbing his temples. He had drunk a bit too much competing with Zoro last night. First, brush teeth. Nah, smoke first. Sitting on the railing of the crow's nest, he recalled the undead he had summoned before sleep to keep watch through the night. "Yo, Reiner. Up early? You two drank quite a bit last night." Sanji was already awake, emerging from the cabin below deck. He looked up, smiling, and greeted Reiner in the crow's nest. "You're up early too. Why not sleep in a bit longer?" "Well, time to get up and prepare a breakfast made with love for Nami Swan." "What about us? If you want to eat, cook it yourself." "What was that? What did you just say?" "Ha ha ha, just kidding. As a chef, how could I let you guys starve?" Sanji waved dismissively with a laugh and headed towards the second-floor kitchen. Gradually, the others also woke up. After breakfast, the sun had fully risen. "Everyone. There's an island ahead. It should be Logtown. Coming, coming. Let me see." Luffy excitedly ran to the bow, leaning over the sheep figurehead to gaze into the distance. After a day's sailing, the crew had arrived at the town known as the Place of Beginning and End. "Reiner, give me money. I wanna go have fun." Luffy grinned, holding out his hand for cash. Reiner tossed Luffy 100,000 Bailey. "That should be enough if it's just for eating, drinking, and playing. I also need to buy 2 new swords. Around 200,000 Bailey should do it." Faced with Zoro's request, Reiner hesitated for a moment. Would giving him the money prevent him from getting the Sandai Kaitetsu and Yubashiri? Ah well, who can predict matters of fate, Reiner thought, giving the money to Zoro anyway. Finally, after giving Nami and Usopp some funds as well, Reiner slung a large bag of money over his shoulder and headed into town with Sanji. They planned to procure supplies together at the market. Sanji knew more about ingredients, so Reiner would handle medicine and other daily necessities. Although they had brought plenty of ingredients from the Verity, Sanji was idle anyway. If they happened to find some rare delicacies, they could treat everyone to a high-quality meal tonight. Come see, come look. Deep-sea fish just delivered by a North Blue merchant. Giant mountain wolf pelts from the Grand Line. Brought back by the mountain wolf pirates risking life and limb. Berg. Double cheese hamburger. What was that last one? Never mind. Reiner and Sanji wandered around for a while, gathering most of the needed supplies. Aside from a few nice-looking groupers, Sanji didn't find much else of interest. Hey, hurry up. The cooking contest is starting. It's finally starting? Let's go, let's go. I heard the first prize is an elephant tuna. Several passers-by hurried past Reiner, apparently eager to join some excitement. Their shouts attracted quite a few others along the way. Elephant tuna? Sounds interesting. I think I'll give it a shot. Want to come along, Reiner? I'll pass. I have some other things to take care of, Reiner said, handing Sanji the backpack full of supplies he was carrying. How about this, after you're done with the excitement, bring this stuff back to the ship. Are you going somewhere? Going to check out the black market. Alright then, be careful, Sanji said, taking the backpack. I'm heading off then. Yeah, good luck, Reiner said simply, parting ways with Sanji and heading straight into an alley. While paying for goods earlier, he had noticed two little hoodlums eyeing him from the corner. Getting info from the local snakes is always easier. Reiner strolled leisurely deep into the alley. The two hoodlums finally couldn't restrain themselves and jumped out, blocking his path. Heh. What's in the bag you're carrying? Open it up and let this great one take a look. One of them, a yellow-haired man, grinned menacingly and pulled out a long knife, holding it across his chest. Why another one with that laugh? Reiner thought internally. Reiner's expression remained unchanged. Without a word, he reached into his coat and drew his pistol. Bang! The knife-wielding man was startled by the sudden movement, instinctively raising his knife and tucking his chin. Schlick. It just hit your shoulder, stop making such a fuss, Reiner said calmly, walking forward. Where is the biggest black market in this town, and what power runs it behind the scenes? The yellow-haired man gritted his teeth, clutching his shoulder trying to slow the bleeding, staring in panic as Reiner approached step by step. His companion was already paralyzed with fear, sitting slumped on the ground, hands gripping a dagger, trembling uncontrollably. Just two little thugs. Don't tell me you can't even speak? Reiner sighed. Then you're useless. Wait. I know. The shot man quickly yelled out. There are two main black markets in this town. One is controlled by our boss, Bartolomeo. The other black market is run by a mysterious group, but there are rumors they're from the Grand Line. They say they work for someone called Joker. Bartolomeo? Reiner suddenly recalled that the crest-headed guy was from around here. But first things first. After extracting the desired information from the two hoodlums, he left immediately. Doflamingo's business spreads across the world. It's perfectly normal for him to have a base in Logetown, one of the most prosperous towns in the East Blue. Just don't know if they have seastone in stock. After all, I can't wait around here forever. This is Smoker's territory, and even if the smoke fruit is called the shame of the Logia, I can't handle it right now. Soon, following the information he received, Reiner arrived in front of a tavern, accompanied by the Katana Devil and the Chainsaw Devil. This was deep within a remote alley, people became scarce halfway down. A good place for murder and robbery, Reiner couldn't help but comment inwardly. The tavern was cold and deserted inside. Only four men lounged lazily at the bar counter. Opposite them stood an old man with white hair wearing a monocle, currently polishing a glass with a handkerchief. The old man's face bore clear wrinkles, yet he looked radiant with vitality, standing tall and straight in his bartender uniform, complete with a red bootie at the collar. Creak. The tavern door swung open. The old bartender and the four slouching men all looked towards the entrance. First, a young man with refined features and golden hair entered, bowing slightly and extending a hand as if ushering in some important figures. The old man's gaze couldn't help but lift, focusing on the two figures striding confidently through the door. Hey, what are those things? Are they human? Devil fruit users. The lounging men panicked slightly at the sight of the two undead, whose appearances were both ferocious and bizarrely unique. It's them. A flicker of surprise crossed the old bartender's mind, but his facial expression remained unchanged. His deep voice resonated, looks like some big shots have arrived. The knife-saw duo from the Straw Hat Pirates, who recently defeated East Blue's #1 villain, Arlong. It is them. I remember now. From yesterday's bounty posters. The 25 million Bailey knife-saw duo. They look way creepier in person than in the photo, hey. Chapter 19, Joker, the Clown? Seeing the two approaching undead, The men immediately scattered, retreating to either side. If a fight broke out, they didn't know if the old man behind the bar could even stop these things. Reiner paid them no mind, directing the katana and chainsaw devils to take seats at the bar counter, then followed suit. "Our master is here to make a deal," Reiner stated directly, wasting no words. "We need sea stone items, in stock now. If you have them, state your price." The white-haired old man glanced at him without speaking, then turned his gaze back to the two undead. Reiner naturally understood his meaning. While looking at the chainsaw devil, he mentally directed it to nod slightly towards the old man. Only then did the old man look back at Reiner, thinking internally, are these two cyborgs? Arrogant, or perhaps unable to speak? He had come from the Grand Line to oversee the Logtown base for the East Blue operations. He had seen all sorts of strange things. Looking at the appearance of these two figures, his first thought was cyborgs. The fact that their designs were very similar reinforced this belief. After all, two identical devil fruit powers wouldn't appear simultaneously, and while similar powers might exist, the probability of two such users appearing together was minuscule. Sea stone handcuffs, 2 pairs. 15 million per pair, the white-haired old man stated coolly. He didn't doubt their ability to pay. In the East Blue, few even knew about devil fruits, let alone sea stone, which countered their abilities. Since this person came asking directly, he clearly wasn't ignorant. "Do you have sea stone bullets?" Reiner pressed. Processing sea stone into bullets is extremely difficult. 6 million Bailey per bullet. "I have 16 rounds here," the old man replied. "Additionally, they require a special gun to fire. 8 million per gun." Reiner intentionally glanced at the chainsaw devil again, then directed it to give another slight nod. "I'll take all the handcuffs and bullets. Do you have any extra guns?" "We have 3 in stock." "Pack them all up together," Reiner said decisively. "Spares and spares for the spares, isn't that common sense?" "Are you sure?" A change finally flickered across the old man's face. He had guessed they could afford something, but he hadn't expected them to buy out the entire stock. This added up to 150 million Bailey. Who are they planning to fight that requires this kind of expense? Maybe they should just hire us as muscle instead. If Reiner knew what the old man was thinking, he would have laughed out loud. "Double it to 300 million, and you guys go take out Crocodile and Enel." "Certain. We'll take it all." "Verify the cash," Croc slowed down, addressing the men who had retreated to the side. "Go get the goods and show him." Reiner placed the money bag he was carrying directly onto the bar counter. He hadn't been sure how much money to bring on this trip. Of the 400 million obtained from Arlong, 100 million was left for Kokoyasi village. He had brought the remaining 300 million. Although these were the crew's funds, no one would complain about money spent wisely on essentials. As Reiner unzipped the bag, the old man's breath hitched noticeably. Honestly, the white-haired old man was tempted. In a place like the East Blue, seeing someone casually place 300 million Bailey in front of you, you'd have to be dead not to feel tempted. However, the old man didn't make a move. Joker's business spanned the globe. If he attacked and failed to take down the opponent on the spot, it would severely damage Joker's reputation. Forcibly suppressing his desire to act, the white-haired old man began counting the money, while simultaneously keeping an eye on the knife-saw duo, calculating the probability of successfully taking them down. Reiner, conversely, was somewhat disappointed. This old man wasn't weak, but Reiner could tell he wasn't as strong as Arlong. Reiner almost wished the old man would try to pull a black eats black move. As for Doflamingo, just needed to be clean about it. By the time Doflamingo could trace it back to him, it would be ages later, and who knows how strong Reiner would be by then. Doflamingo himself might have to carefully consider his own strength before acting. Should I strike first? Is it necessary? It's not like I can't afford this, Reiner calculated internally. He wasn't afraid of not being able to win, he was afraid of the opponent escaping. Reiner continuously pulled stacks of cash from the bag, while a white-haired old man slowly verified the bills. Both men harbored hidden intentions. "Boss Croc, the goods are here." Several men emerged from the back, one carrying a suitcase. Only then did Reiner learn the old man's name. The men placed the suitcase on the table and retreated. Old man Croc pushed the counted money aside, then opened the suitcase, turning it to show Reiner the contents. Inside lay 2 pairs of sea-stone handcuffs, 3 ordinary-looking revolvers, and finally, 3 revolver cylinders, 2 fully loaded with 6 sea-stone bullets each, and 1 cylinder with 2 empty chambers, implying 4 bullets. Total 16 bullets. "We work for Joker. Since you found your way here, you must know our reputation." "Of course, you can test a shot first if you like." "Oh my, Mr. Croc, how could you say such a thing? Wouldn't I trust you?" Reiner chuckled awkwardly, closing the suitcase. "All right then. The transaction is officially complete. No returns or exchanges once you leave this shop, Kruk said, gathering the money from the counter. Reiner placed the suitcase into the now half-empty money bag, then picked up the bag. He extended one hand to shake Kruk's, while simultaneously directing the Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil to stand up and leave. Kruk also extended his hand, but his peripheral vision remained fixed on the movements of the Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil. Their hands met and gripped firmly for a few moments. Reiner controlled the two undead to turn towards the exit. As Kruk saw their backs turn, a ruthless glint flashed in his eyes. As the knife saw duo slowly walked away, Reiner and Kruk began to release their handshake, their hands slowly withdrawing midair. The room was silent, the air seemingly frozen. Bang! Kruk exploded into action. He slammed both hands onto the bar counter, simultaneously pushing off with his legs. Propelled by the combined force, his entire body shot forward at incredible speed. Die. His plan: ambush and kill these two instantly, then slowly deal with the golden-haired follower. Do it cleanly, and no one will ever find out. I knew you were scum. At the exact same moment Kruk attacked, several void rifts instantly tore open throughout the room. Several opened in front of the four men by the wall, and another appeared right behind Kruk. This was a battle where victory or defeat had to be decided instantly. Take them down inside this room, and there would be no problems. If they escaped, endless trouble would follow. Both sides shared the same thought. Although having the two undead turn their backs was Reiner's intentional bait, if Kruk hadn't attacked, Reiner would have simply left. However, there were no ifs. The opponent made his move, so Reiner had to be even more ruthless. Kruk formed his hands into blades, chopping towards the necks of the knife-saw duo from behind. Simultaneously, from the void rift behind him, a pair of arms ending in sharp claws thrust out, stabbing viciously towards his waist. The knife-saw duo didn't have eyes in the back of their heads and couldn't see Kruk, but Reiner saw everything clearly. The instant Kruk moved, Reiner commanded the undead to spin around, while simultaneously drawing his white bone chain sword, its tip aimed at Kruk. You thought you were ambushing them? This is the four of us surrounding you, old man. 3 long swords and 3 chainsaws slashed towards Kruk simultaneously, while from behind, sharp claws were already plunging towards his waist. Shoot him! The serrated tip of the white bone chain sword suddenly shot forward. Schlick! 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 In a single instant, the bone chain sword pierced through Kruk's body. The wolverine claws sank deep into his waist. The katana and chainsaw devil simultaneously slashed their blades and saws into his shoulders, neck, and chest. Kruk lost his balance midair. The impacts from multiple directions sent his body tumbling forward in a twisted posture. If you're going to do it fast, do it ruthlessly. How? How could this be? Kruk's eyes widened in disbelief. He lay battered in a pool of blood, coughing up blood. I'm. Cough. Joker's man. If you kill me. Reiner paid him no heed, delivering the finishing blow directly. You won't have problems precisely because I killed you, old man. He then swiftly cut down the 4 men in the corner and walked towards the back of the tavern. Time for a harvest, then destroy the bodies and traces, and get out. Chapter 20, heading towards the grand line behind the tavern, inside a dim warehouse, the air was thick with the sulfurous nitric smell of gunpowder. Various weapons hung all over the walls. TSK, just a pile of munitions? Reiner sighed in disappointment. After rummaging through boxes and cabinets for a while, he only found less than 70 million Bailey. This is supposed to be Logtown's biggest underground trading post, how come it only has this stuff? And so little money. Still, even a mosquito's leg is meat. Besides the cash, he also packed up a considerable amount of arms and weapons, along with a few bottles of good wine. After setting the tavern ablaze, Reiner visited the other black market controlled by Bartolomeo and sold off all the arms at a low price. Before leaving, he saw someone selling log poses and conveniently bought 10 of them. Interestingly, this black market genuinely resembled a marketplace, with scattered stalls lining a street, frequented by fierce-looking individuals or cloaked figures. Just like something out of a novel, Reiner couldn't help but smile. Including the weapons I sold, I probably made around 120 million Bailey. The good news was, he got the sea stone. The better news was, he didn't spend a dime and even turned a profit. Reiner left the black market with his money, preparing to head back to the ship, planning to check if Sanji's competition had finished on the way. Suddenly, the clear sky began to darken. Dark clouds, as if summoned by someone, rapidly converged over Logtown. Reiner subconsciously quickened his pace. Just as he was passing a certain square. Look at that guy. He's smiling. Hearing the shouts from the surrounding crowd, Reiner couldn't help but stop and look sideways. There, In the center of the vast square, atop the towering execution platform, stood a red-nosed man in clown makeup. Shackled beneath him, Luffy was grinning broadly. Holy crap! The world-famous scene? Wait, why is the King of Luck here? We didn't even mess with him. Jahahaha. I heard the little wench who stole my sea chart joined your crew. Looks like she doesn't plan on saving you. Clown Buggy grinned menacingly, raising his knife. Then you can repay me with your head. Damn it, he's a bit far, Reiner cursed under his breath while rushing forward, simultaneously drawing his pistol and aiming at Buggy on the platform. This was the special gun Reiner had prepared earlier, loaded with sea stone bullets, just in case they were intercepted by Smoker on the way. Bang! Just as Buggy raised his knife, Reiner's bullet struck him squarely in the shoulder, sending out a spray of blood. Damn it! What is this? Buggy cursed through gritted teeth, collapsing weakly onto the execution platform. He rolled over once and tumbled off the side. Luffy, seeing Buggy fall, looked slightly baffled. Following the sound of the gunshot, he spotted Reiner below, his smile growing even wider. Shishishi. Knew you wouldn't die. What the hell were you doing? Reiner climbed onto the platform and broke Luffy's cuffs. We gotta run, Luffy. Back to the ship. Standing on the execution platform, Reiner could already see Smoker in the distance, heading towards the square on his bizarrely shaped motorcycle. He didn't want to engage Smoker, although the sea stone bullets greatly reduced the threat. Beating Smoker offered no benefits, and wasting multi-million Bailey bullets here was out of the question. Yosh! Let's go, Reiner. Yeah, let's pick up Sanji on the way. Reiner and Luffy jumped down from the platform and ran south, the direction where their ship was docked. A light drizzle began to fall from the sky. The two ran onward, while Smoker relentlessly pursued them on his custom bike. Hey, Sanji. Reiner spotted Sanji jogging ahead, carrying a large blue and white striped fish, the elephant tuna he had won in the competition. Sanji heard the call and turned, seeing Reiner and Luffy sprinting towards him. Oh, it's you guys. What's the rush? Run, Sanji. Navy's behind us. The pair didn't slow down at all, dashing right past him. Sanji, caught off guard for a moment, stood frozen. Looking closer, he finally spotted Smoker on his motorcycle. Damn it. Couldn't you pretend you didn't know me? Dragging me into this mess. Sanji yelled, taking off at full speed. Luffy and Sanji ran, one carrying the fish's head, the other the tail, as the light drizzle intensified into a torrential downpour. Large raindrops hammered their faces, visibility worsening within the curtain of rain. No good. His bike is much faster than us. If this keeps up, he'll catch us soon. Want to fight? Don't waste time, keep running, Reiner stopped them. When he catches up, I'll feed him something big. As time passed, the trio drew closer to the port, but Smoker behind them reached it first. White blow. A hoarse roar echoed. Reiner and the others couldn't help but turn and look back. A rolling cloud of thick white smoke surged towards them, with Smoker's upper body emerging from the front. Straw Hat Luffy. Your little pirate game ends here. Smoker glared, winding up a punch aimed at Luffy. What is this thing? Luffy exclaimed in surprise, dodging the punch sideways and retaliating with a whip kick towards Smoker. However, his foot passed right through the smoke as if stepping on air. What happened? Didn't it? No, it should have hit. Luffy and Sanji were clearly shocked. Gum gum. Gatling. Luffy refused to accept it, unleashing a barrage of punches. Yet, every fist passed straight through Smoker's body. It's no use, Luffy. He is a Logia-type ability user. Normal attacks can't touch his real body. Reiner quickly shouted, simultaneously drawing his pistol. You seem to know a thing or two. Smoker couldn't help but glance sideways at Reiner. Then isn't he invincible? How do we fight him if we can't touch his real body? Luffy and Sanji were clearly stunned. Since you understand, you should give up hope. With your strength, you cannot possibly defeat me, Smoker stated coolly, his deep voice sounding like a final verdict. Reiner remained unfazed, aiming his gun directly at Smoker. 6 million Bailey a shot. Using it on you is a real damn waste. It's useless. Stop struggling. Smoker roared, completely ignoring Reiner's aimed gun, leaving himself wide open as he threw a heavy punch towards Reiner. Bang. The instant Smoker's fist flew out, Reiner also pulled the trigger. The bullet reached Smoker first. PFFT. Something completely unexpected happened to Smoker. The bullet didn't pass through his body like Luffy's fists. A spray of blood erupted before Smoker's shocked eyes. Skimming low across the ground, Smoker's form staggered, and then he crashed heavily onto the pavement. Hockey? No. That was Smoker's first thought, the bullet was coated in hockey. But the next moment, a feeling of powerlessness washed over his entire body, and his elemental legs reverted to their original form. Sea stone. How is this possible? Smoker lay helplessly on the ground, face contorted in disbelief, watching them gradually run further away. Sea stone production was extremely scarce. Even the world government needed to collect it from all over the world through various means. They even resorted to cooperating with pirates, paying exorbitant prices to trade with Kaido-occupied Wano country for sea stone. Besides the world government, even in the Grand Line, only a very small number of pirate crews possessed any. How could a pirate from the East Blue possibly get their hands on something like this? Smoker thought incredulously. Nice shot, Reiner. Luffy grinned, flashing his teeth. Sanji, however, was more observant, looking quizzically at Reiner. How did you do that? Didn't you say Logia users can't be touched physically? Don't talk about it, my heart is bleeding, Reiner said, clutching his chest in mock agony over the cost. He then explained the effects of sea stone to the two, mentioning his visit to the underground trading place earlier that day. By the time they reached the port, the others had already arrived. The rain gradually stopped, and the previously gloomy sky inexplicably cleared up again, turning sunny. What bizarre weather, Sanji remarked, looking up at the sky. Reiner, however, seemed unfazed. He lit a cigarette and walked onto the ship. Let's go, Sanji. Shishishi. Next stop, the Grand Line. Let's go. Meanwhile, on a street in Logtown, Smoker lay sprawled on the ground, waiting for his subordinates to come rescue him. He currently lacked even the strength to dig the bullet out. Suddenly, a low chuckle sounded from behind him. Looking quite pathetic, Smoker. How are you here? Smoker turned his head back in surprise. Happened to be in the neighborhood on business. Thought I'd stop by and see the young ones off. See them off? Smoker looked slightly confused, apparently not worried that the figure before him might attack. See them off. Chapter 21, Welcome Town? Large, soft snowflakes like goose down were falling upon the undulating sea as the Going Merry sailed through the snow-filled sky. What the heck? It was just raining a moment ago, how did it turn into snow now? This Grand Line weather is just too bizarre. It really is just like Old Man Crocus said. Luckily, Reiner bought clothes for all 4 seasons back in Logtown. On the deck of the Merry, Nami had a scarf wrapped around her neck and wore warm earmuffs. Even bundled in a down jacket, she was still shivering uncontrollably. Women are hard to understand. Looking at Nami's fair, exposed thighs, Reiner couldn't help but comment dryly, I say, Nami, if you're that cold, why not wear some thicker pants? None of your business. Blep. Nami stuck out her tongue playfully. It had been several days since they left Logtown and entered the Grand Line. They had encountered Laboon and Old Man Crocus as expected. From Crocus's explanations, they had also learned some information about the Grand Line. Due to the extremely chaotic magnetic fields of the Grand Line, normal compasses were useless here. That part was fine, Reiner had already prepared 10 log poses the day before. The trouble was that the chaotic magnetic fields also made the weather, ocean currents, and wind direction incredibly unpredictable. Even Nami was initially flustered, creating a lot of extra work for Reiner. When the weather changed, steering the ship, raising and lowering the sails, etc., were all handled by his undead working together. They dealt with accumulated water during rain and swept snow during snowfall. Nami even outrageously suggested burning the skeleton undead's bones to make a fire for warmth, completely disregarding the lives of the skeletons. Nami, how much longer until we reach the next island? Reiner asked. Nami thought for a moment. We're about to enter the range covered by the next island's magnetic field. The wind and currents should become relatively stable then. If things go smoothly, we should arrive before evening today. Cactus Island, the first stop in the Grand Line. Reiner began to look forward to it. It had been 1.5 years since he transmigrated, and he had finally accumulated enough strength to enter the Grand Line. Luffy and Zoro's contributions were indispensable. Without their templates, relying solely on Reiner's initial group of weaklings to challenge Kuro and Arlong would have been nigh impossible. His ability just needed to accumulate a certain level of strength initially, and then it could start snowballing continuously. Now, with the Katana Devil and Chainsaw Devil undead, the enhanced Wolverine undead, fused with Sanji's template, plus the Bone Chain Sword made from Arlong's template, he finally possessed decent strength for the first half of the Grand Line. Once he obtained the templates of the 2 Elbaf giant leaders in Little Garden, very few people in the first half of the Grand Line would pose a threat to him. After all, the giants' terrifying overall physical stats were a known fact. In his hands, the strength they could exert would be even greater than their original bodies. Shishishi. Look at my snowman Laboon. Not bad, Luffy. But still too crude. Let me show you my Snow Queen. Oh ha ha ha. Amazing, Usopp. Luffy praised excitedly. Reiner couldn't help but admire Usopp's snowman. With its exquisite crown and ornately styled clothing, calling it lifelike wouldn't be an exaggeration. But why did the face look somewhat familiar? TSK, is that supposed to be Kaya? Reiner thought of a certain figure and teased Usopp, missing the comforts of home already. Usopp? WH, what are you saying? Usopp blushed and stumbled back a few steps. I'm going to be a brave warrior of the sea. How could I possibly be tied down by romantic entanglements? I think Kaya is pretty great, you know. Pretty and gentle. Maybe I should bear this burden for you? How dare you, brat? Haha, alright, I won't tease you anymore. Reiner turned and asked Sanji with a smile, our head chef, what's for lunch today? Well, that elephant tuna from last time is on its last legs. Time to butcher it. Sanji pondered for a moment, exhaling smoke. What should I make? Any ideas? Luffy, grilled fish. Usopp, fish head soup. Reiner, sashimi. Zoro, whatever. Alright then, fish head soup, fish belly sashimi, and the rest grilled. As for the most delicious part, the fish nose, that, of course, will be decided by the lovely Miss Nami. Sanji's eyes turned into hearts, instantly transforming into a lovesick fool. TCH, pervy cook. What did you say, mosshead? Reiner chuckled watching these two rivals. Sanji had only been on board for a few days, and he and Zoro had already started their days of mutual dislike. Soon, Sanji went into the kitchen to get busy. Luffy and Usopp began their daily fishing routine, while Reiner and Zoro went to the stern to lift weights. You're improving quickly, Reiner, Zoro couldn't help but remark. It hasn't even been 2 weeks, and your weight load has increased again. Well, it's mainly thanks to the devil fruit boost. Makes training twice as effective, Reiner explained. When he first arrived, he was just an ordinary person powerless even to truss a chicken. Now, his physical condition far surpassed that of a normal person. Without the enhancement from his zone fruit, achieving this level through training alone would have been extremely difficult. If you keep this up, I might be surpassed by you in less than a year. Zoro couldn't help but grip his own barbell tighter, watching Reiner do push-ups with a 1,200 kilograms load. Not at all. I'm not the only one improving. I still have a long way to go to catch up to you, Reiner said, glancing at the 2,100 kilograms barbell in Zoro's hands, unconsciously putting more force into his own movements. The two silently competed until Sanji called them for lunch. After eating, Reiner returned to the crow's nest to keep watch, bringing his barbell with him. He stayed there until evening, when the setting sun was nearing the horizon, before finally spotting an island. From afar, he could vaguely make out rows of houses packed closely together, with several large cactus-shaped mountain peaks behind the town. Everyone. Island sighted. There's a town on it. Reiner shouted down, then lit a cigarette, watching as the ship slowly approached. Luffy and the others immediately got excited. After sailing for several days, they were finally arriving at an island with signs of civilization. This island was called Cactus Island. A river divided the island in two. The Going Merry sailed up the river, arriving at an inland port. It's pirates. Quick, tell everyone pirates are here. Someone at the port spotted the pirate ship and hastily ran into town. After a short while, the port was crowded with villagers. Strangely, not only did the villagers show no trace of panic, but they all looked cheerful and excited. Brave warriors of the sea. Welcome to Whiskey Peak. Hearing the bustling calls from the port, everyone except the thrilled Luffy and Usopp wore puzzled expressions. Hello everyone. Why they called me a brave warrior of the sea. Compared to those two's reactions, Nami and the others seemed much more normal. Did I hear that right? They're actually welcoming pirates? Hey, a strange town, Zoro remarked, observing the villagers below with interest. Soon, everyone disembarked. Reiner dropped anchor, secured the Mary, and jumped down as well. A tall man with voluminous curly hair stepped forward, clearing his throat like a singer warming up. Oh. Then, a smile spread across the curly-haired man's face as he addressed the group. My name is Igaram. I am the mayor of this town. Welcome, everyone, to the Welcome Town, Whiskey Peak. Upon hearing this, Luffy immediately rushed forward to greet him, and soon the entire group was mingling cheerfully with the villagers. Chapter 22, the grave-covered cactus arms slung around each other's shoulders, the group walked laughingly into the small town. Let's throw a banquet for these brave warriors of the sea, everyone. Igaram yelled with a smile, clapping Luffy on the shoulder. Today, we absolutely must give you all a proper welcome. Oh ha ha ha. You guys are awesome, mister. Luffy was incredibly excited. Reiner only had vague memories of the original plot, especially the early parts he'd watched when he was younger. He dimly recalled this place being a front for Crocodile's assassination organization, staffed by bounty hunters disguised as villagers, specializing in deceiving naive pirates new to the Grand Line and assassinating them. Just a bunch of small fry, Reiner thought, his expression unchanged. This mayor guy should be Vivi's. What was it? Uncle? Bodyguard? Whatever. Besides him and Vivi, there's no one else worth noting here. In fact, Reiner wasn't particularly obsessed with Crocodile. His undead couldn't inherit devil fruit abilities, and in terms of physical stats, Crocodile was far inferior to the two giants from Little Garden. Blue Ogre Dory, Red Ogre Broggy. Leaders of the giant warrior pirates from Elbaf in the New World. The giant sea kings they once hunted were larger than several volcanoes combined, occupying half of the entire island of Little Garden. The image of their attack, Spear of Elbaf, Hueco, instantly piercing the island-eater goldfish. Reiner recalled it as if it were yesterday. He couldn't imagine anyone in the first half of the Grand Line who could withstand a single blast of that attack head-on. You say Logia types can handle it. Okay, never mind then. Sisters, look. There are two handsome blonde guys here. A shout interrupted Reiner's thoughts. A group of curvy, voluptuous beauties rushed out from the crowd, dressed in revealingly cool attire. Each had a slender figure and approached Sanji and Reiner with beaming smiles. Sanji couldn't handle such a scene at all, instantly devolving into a lovesick daze as he rushed towards them. What's your name, little brother? Several girls sidled up to Reiner, their delicate hands immediately making contact, either wrapping around his waist or caressing his chest. Even through his clothes, Reiner could feel the warm, soft pressure against him. Testing cadres with this kind of stuff? Who could possibly withstand such a test? So straightforward. A smirk played on Reiner's lips as he chuckled inwardly. The Grand Line is good, the Grand Line is marvelous. Laughing heartily, Reiner opened his arms wide, slinging one arm around a girl's fragrant shoulder and wrapping the other around another's slender waist, embracing one on each side. Oh, stop it. Sir, your arms are so strong. I can barely breathe. He wasn't some stuffy traditionalist. Honey traps like this? The more, the merrier. Bring them on. Tonight, I'm taking on 10. Stop it, sir, can you even handle it? The girls giggled, completely unfazed by Reiner and Sanji's wandering hands. Nami and Zoro, trailing behind, couldn't help but shake their heads, looking exasperatedly at the crew members who were easily swayed by a few words. Honestly. These guys are completely unreliable. Nami gritted her teeth. Anyone with half a brain knows there's no such thing as a town that welcomes pirates. Well, whatever. Let's just see how it plays out, Zoro said nonchalantly. You're the reliable one, Zoro. As long as there's booze, nothing else matters. Damn it. I just complimented you, and you say that. Nami roared furiously. And so, the group followed the villagers' enthusiastic reception into the town. Soon, night fell. In the town of Whiskey Peak, every house closed its doors and extinguished its lights. The silent and deserted Cactus Island seemed desolate, save for one building still glowing with dim yellow light. Because of their arrival, this place had become incredibly lively, filled with sounds of laughter and merriment spilling from within. Another cook is down. That's the third one already. Just how much can he eat? A crowd stared dumbfounded, surrounding Luffy who was wolfing down food. Just then, cries of surprise erupted from another side. Heavens! This swordsman fellow actually drank 13 people under the table. And the beautiful lady next to him still looks full of fight. She's currently competing against her 15th opponent. Inside the room, Zoro and Nami were engaged in a drinking contest. Determined to win the generous cash prize, Nami was mustering all her strength to take down opponent after opponent. Reiner leaned back on a sofa, embraced on both sides by beauties feeding him morsels, enjoying himself immensely. In the lively room, everyone was caught up in the revelry. However, while the villagers wore smiles, inwardly they were cursing up a storm. In a dark room on the second floor, a woman with long, sky blue hair tied in a high ponytail watched the scene on the first floor through a crack in the door, gritting her teeth. Where did these damn starving ghosts come from? If they keep eating and drinking like this, we're going to lose our shirts on this job. A man with curly yellow hair and wearing a crown responded, exactly. Is this really necessary, Mr. 8? They're just a few pirates from the East Blue. Your intelligence work is pathetic. Look at this. A deep voice spoke up. Igaram, known as Mr. 8, pulled out several bounty posters from his coat. He slapped the posters onto the table, spreading them out. Displayed prominently were the faces of Luffy, Zoro, and the knife-saw devils. 30 million? For that simple-minded-looking kid? And that green-haired swordsman is worth 16 million too. And what the hell are these two things? The yellow-haired, crowned man, Mr. 9, exclaimed. A 25 million combination? I don't think I saw those two around. Probably guarding the ship. The men we sent out reported seeing several figures left on their boat, Igaram said nonchalantly. Total bounty over 70 million. If we fight a pirate crew like this head-on, we probably don't stand a chance. Creak. Just then, the room door opened. Relax, they're all down. A tall, dark-skinned woman with sturdy limbs, Ms. Monday, walked in and addressed the others in the room. These people's appetites are truly outrageous. Our food supplies were already low, and they nearly ate everything. Good thing their bounties are high enough. Is everyone taken care of? Then notify everyone to start working. Let's go, Igaram said, adjusting his collar. He led the others out through the window. Cactus Island was famous for its several large green mountains. Covered everywhere with cross-shaped gravestones, from afar they resembled the spines on a cactus ball. Back in the hall where the feast had ended, Reiner, lying on the sofa, opened his eyes. He extracted himself from the pile of women sleeping haphazardly around him. It's already midnight, huh? They sure know how to party. Looking at the messy state of the hall, Reiner couldn't help but scratch his golden hair. Click. A lighter flicked, and Sanji's voice came from nearby. You can say that again. This schedule is terrible. Here. Thanks. Reiner casually caught the cigarette tossed to him, then turned to look at Zoro sitting at the bar counter. Where's Nami? Said she was going to look for their treasure. Left already, Zoro replied coolly. He had woken up earlier and was sitting at the bar, pouring himself a drink. Reiner chuckled softly. Then she's on a wasted drip. My undead already confirmed this place is completely broke. Zzz. A loud snore suddenly erupted. Sleeping this soundly in the enemy's den. That's fluffy for you, Usopp mumbled, climbing up from the floor and shaking his head. Bodies lay scattered around the room. In the dim yellow light, the few awake figures smoked or drank, completely unconcerned about their situation. Everyone's face was calm, unperturbed by the impending crisis. Chapter 23, 3, crossed out, 2 versus 100 under the moon. Reiner scanned the surroundings, then spoke coolly, knocking the ash from his cigarette. About 100 people outside, plus those Mr. Whatever officers. Sounds kind of familiar, Zoro murmured, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. Reiner looked slightly puzzled. Baroque works? Have you encountered them before? Ah, I remember now. They tried to recruit me before. You're quite famous in the East Blue then, Zoro, Reiner teased, before heading towards the door. Alright, let's go to work. Oh no. I've contracted the disease where I die if I step outside this door. The enemies are all yours. The brave warrior of the sea clutched his chest, then promptly lay down and played dead. Fine, a few small fry hardly require the intervention of God Usopp anyway. Then leave it to us. Let's go, curly brows. Shut up. Don't order me around, mosshead. Outside the house, the scene was bustling with activity. The curly-haired Mr. 8 walked at the front, surrounded by several officer-level members, followed by about 100 regular agents, all swarming towards the house where Reiner's group was staying. Mr. 8 adjusted his collar and said, "Don't be careless. Their total bounty exceeds 70 million Bailey. Take down the few inside the house first, then we'll deal with their ship. They're just a few drunk pirates. No matter how strong, they're just fish on the chopping block," the crown-wearing Mr. 9 scoffed, adding, "Anyway, there are only a few of them, while we have over 100. The advantage is ours." Yo. Over 100, huh? That should take a while to cut down. A disdainful voice rang out. Mr. 8 and the others paused, looking up instinctively. Under the high-hanging full moon against the black sky, 3 dark silhouettes stood backlit by the cold moonlight on the rooftop. How can this be? Weren't they already down? Don't panic. The curly-haired Mr. 8 yelled, his expression grim. There are only 3 of them. And their strongest member, the captain, isn't among them. He's right. Mr. 9 gritted his teeth, quickly pulling out 2 metal baseball bats. All the agents put on ferocious expressions, drawing swords and raising guns, preparing for a major fight. So little class. These must be the cheapest assassins I've ever seen, Reiner couldn't help but roast from below. Is Crocodile so poor he can only afford this level of goon, or is he so rich he hires even these small fry? Reiner didn't plan to intervene personally. After all, they had treated them to food and drinks, and provided the company of so many lovely ladies. His undead didn't know how to hold back, and he'd feel a bit bad if they killed too many. Only Reiner remained sitting alone on the high platform of the roof. Sanji and Zoro had vanished from his side at some point. Yo. So you're the ones after my head? Making such a racket late at night instead of sleeping. Zoro's and Sanji's voices suddenly erupted from within the crowd below, causing widespread panic. Reacting quickly, everyone spun around, But by the time they aimed their weapons, the two figures were already gone. Zoro unsheathed his three swords. Amidst flashes of cold steel and flickering shadows, blood instantly splattered everywhere. Sanji moved like a swimming dragon through the crowd, his leg techniques dazzling as enemies fell in droves. They really are monstrously strong, Reiner couldn't help but admire, watching the battle below. His own physical condition wasn't bad, thanks to the unique zone enhancement and daily training, calling his progress rapid wouldn't be an exaggeration. However, his combat skills were still lacking. He had tried learning swordsmanship, abysmal talent. Considered focusing on martial arts since its potential was high, ended up just flailing randomly. Attempted to take a shortcut with firearms, turned out to be a master of tracing outlines, missing. When he first arrived, he tried knives, spears, clubs, and staffs, no talent for any of them. Rely on hard work? He scoffed. Later, he decided, continue training the body, since he had free time anyway, but don't force it, just enough to survive is fine. Let the undead handle the fighting. What kind of self-respecting summoner fights personally? This Necrolord has zero class. Reiner knew where his advantages lay. Trying to grasp everything and be good at everything? Even wish fulfillment novels wouldn't dare write that. You damn bastard. Finally found you. A shout interrupted Reiner's thoughts. Looking towards the sound, he saw several grunts had climbed up, surrounding him with drawn swords and knives. The one who shouted was the leader, a brown-haired man, glaring furiously at him with a pistol raised. Why so much resentment? Reiner looked puzzledly at the gunman. Hearing this, the brown-haired man grew even angrier. How dare you? How dare you, put your hands all over my little sister. I'm gonna kill you. What? What is this? I need to see they came onto me, alright? Reiner forcefully threw down his cigarette butt and ground it out. Who got the better end of the deal is debatable. And you're lecturing me about this? Shameless bastard. Die. The brown-haired man roared, about to pull the trigger. Bang. A gunshot rang out, but it was the brown-haired man who fell. Yes. I am shameless. But taking a step back, aren't you also partially at fault? Bang. 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 Reiner fired rapidly, and the remaining grunts fell one after another. The outline tracer wasn't blind. When he needed to hit, he hit. He gently blew away the wisp of blue smoke drifting from the muzzle. The battle below was also nearing its end, with only a few officers remaining. Hot-blooded number 9 backflip. The crown-wearing Mr. 9 leaned back, curling into a ball and rolling towards Zoro. His metal baseball bat swung towards Zoro. Then Zoro simply twisted his body sideways, and Mr. 9 rolled right off the roof. Dude, are you going for comedy? Reiner's face instantly darkened. Why does this one feel so embarrassing? Prepare to die, Mr. Bushido. A blue-haired beauty with a ponytail stood atop a duck, swaying her hips left and right while making flourishing hand gestures. Perfume dance kinpo, bewitchment. PFFT haha. Reiner recognized the woman below, it was Princess Vivi of Alabasta. Seeing Vivi acting like a delinquent, Reiner couldn't help but burst out laughing. Fuck, where's my camera? This dark history needs to be recorded immediately. Play it on loop later whenever I need a laugh. However, comedy aside, Vivi's technique actually worked. As the hypnotic pattern on her clothes swayed continuously, Zoro suddenly felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. Go, crew. Quack. The duck shrieked, its webbed feet pattering on the ground as it carried Vivi charging towards Zoro. At the critical moment, Zoro braced himself firmly, gritted his teeth, and swung his sword to block Vivi's peacock slashers, chain weapons, incidentally cutting her hair tie. Her sky blue hair cascaded down onto her shoulders, a few strands slightly obscuring her face. Vivi knelt on the ground, looking appealingly pitiful with her fair face and bitten lip. TSK TSK TSK. Reiner glanced over with interest. Have to say, Vivi really is a natural beauty. However, today he witnessed what a true Sigma male was. Zoro's expression remained unchanged as he charged forward, holding two swords in his hands and the Wado Ukemanji in his mouth. Princess. Igaram panicked instantly, aiming his modified horn bazooka at Zoro. Reiner was also stunned. What? The Princess of Alabasta, the potential 10th crewmate, the key figure related to an ancient weapon, is going to get randomly cut down by Zoro today? Three-sword style, eagle claw. Reiner didn't stop Zoro's attack, because Zoro was using the backs of his blades. Although lacking Sanji's spirit of chivalry, Zoro also rarely, if ever, cut down women. Neck meat kick. Sanji kicked Igaram, knocking him over and preventing his sneak attack. Saved your life, mosshead. No need to thank me. What did you say, curly brows? I would have been fine without you. The battle ended here. Reiner ignored the bickering pair and jumped down directly. Princess? Nami emerged, looking confused. Seeing Nami, Reiner couldn't help but tease, "Yo. How was the haul, Nami? Damn it. What a bunch of poor ghosts. I finally beat you to the punch, but I didn't make a single Bailey." Nami yelled furiously at him, while also viciously stomping on Igaram underfoot. "Hey. Bastard, wake up. What was that you just said about a princess?" Chapter 24, Departing for Little Garden. The moonlight was bright, casting a cold glow over the quiet town streets. "What princess? I never said anything like that." Igaram gritted his teeth, glaring unwillingly at Reiner and the others. "You two bastards." A loud shout erupted from the distance. The group looked over to see Luffy, practically bristling with anger. "Those people treated us to a meal. And you two beat them all up. Sanji and Zoro just joined the crew, fine. But Reiner, why didn't you stop them?" Reiner's face instantly darkened. "So slow on the uptake?" Igaram thought, face down on the ground, looking speechlessly at the captain with a 30 million Bailey bounty. Even an outsider couldn't stand watching anymore. "Damn it. Today, I'm going to teach you the rules of this ship." Luffy clenched his fists angrily, charging forward with his sandals slapping against the ground. "The rules of this ship, huh?" Reiner looked helplessly at the clueless Luffy. "Who exactly doesn't understand the rules here?" Duang. You idiot." With two vicious punches from Nami, Luffy immediately became obedient. Watching Luffy holding his head, crouched on the ground, Reiner and the others could only manage awkward smiles. The rule of this ship was Nami, that vicious woman. A ship tyrant, meek and submissive to outsiders, heavy-fisted towards her own crew. "Alright, back to business." Reiner lit a cigarette, crouching down beside Igaram. "The princess you were yelling about earlier was her, right?" Reiner pointed towards Vivi, who had been knocked out and was lying on the ground nearby. He continued, "Explain everything clearly. Otherwise, we'll toss you both into the sea to feed the fish right now." "Wait." Igaram quickly shouted. "There's no benefit in killing us. I want to commission you for a mission. If you succeed, you will definitely receive a handsome reward." "Huh?" Nami's interest was piqued. She tugged at her shorts, crouched down, and looked at Igaram curiously. "Let's hear it." Igaram gritted his teeth, thought for a moment, then began explaining the mission details. Reiner and the others listened quietly. Pirates burning, killing, and plundering was indeed common practice, but many pirates also took on various commission tasks, acting like mercenaries. These commissions could be legal or illegal, and for many pirates, it was an important source of income. Sometimes, taking a job from royalty or nobility paid much faster than raiding. After all, which noble family didn't have a few shady secrets? The Princess of Alabasta? After hearing Igaram's explanation, everyone except Reiner was visibly shocked. "Hey. That's a superpower nation. And, I remember hearing that country is in the middle of a civil war, right?" Nami chimed in, she habitually read the newspapers. "Why would the princess of a major country be in a place like this? You don't need to concern yourselves with that. Knowing too much will only harm you. So our mission is just to escort you two to Alabasta, correct?" Reiner walked towards Vivi lying on the street. "How long will it take for the longbows to set for this island?" "One day is enough," Igaram replied. "What do you say, Luffy?" "Let's take this mission," Nami said, rubbing her hands together. "The princess of a superpower nation. Let's set the commission fee at 1 billion Bailey." "Nani?" Igaram exclaimed. "Wait. I can't authorize such a large sum. You'll have to discuss the details with the royal family after you've escorted the princess back." Standing beside Vivi, Reiner knew about Alabasta's financial situation. Cobra had already sold off almost everything valuable to provide relief for his people. The king himself lived frugally. How could they possibly come up with 1 billion Bailey? "Alright then." Luffy inexplicably agreed, breaking into a grin. "We accept this mission." Reiner crouched down, grabbed a handful of Vivi's sky blue hair, lifted her head, and patted her cheek. "Hey, wakey, little delinquent." Vivi slowly opened her eyes. Still unaware of what had happened, she glared angrily at Reiner. "Damn you." Alright, stop looking so righteously indignant." The crew briefly explained the situation to Vivi. Soon, the group dispersed. The Straw Hat crew returned to the Going Merry to continue sleeping, leaving only Vivi and Igaram behind. "Is this really alright, Igaram?" Vivi showed a trace of worry. Igaram's earlier expression was gone, replaced by the calm composure befitting a royal guard captain. "You saw their strength yourself, princess. More importantly." He glanced at the unconscious Baroque Works agents scattered around, paused, then continued. "Throughout the fight, they didn't kill a single person. Even though we were enemies, they still showed consideration for the meal we provided. I trust their character." "Is that so?" I understand, Igaram. I trust you. So, tomorrow we'll leave with them. Vivi pushed herself up slowly with her hands. Igaram, however, calmly disagreed. No, princess. You will go with them. I will depart via another route. Why? I saw the unluckies earlier. Igaram's voice turned grim. News of what happened here will soon reach the boss. I will leave overnight, one step ahead, to draw their fire away from you, princess. Wait. Say no more, princess. Igaram interrupted resolutely, then continued softly, the situation in our country allows no optimism. You should know what the top priority is. Vivi pressed her lips together firmly, a trace of unwillingness in her eyes. I understand. The next day at noon, the sun hung high in the cloudless sky. The Going Merry rested peacefully in the calm harbor. On board, several imposing undead eagles perched on the crow's nest railing. Reiner, as usual, was lifting weights with Zoro behind the living quarters. Ready to set sail, everyone. Luffy announced, perched on the Merry's figurehead, hugging the sheep's head. The undead raised the anchor, and the Going Merry slowly departed from the harbor. Everyone on board went about their usual activities. The only difference was the addition of one person and one emergency food supply, crew, to the crew. Is this really okay? Vivi rested her left hand on Run's fast crew, feeling somewhat strange. It seemed like absolutely no one cared that a princess had come aboard. Even though she was the crucial part of their mission, she felt like an invisible person here. Except for Sanji. Lunchtime, everyone. Sanji called out, emerging from the kitchen. He immediately began fawning over Vivi again. Coming. Luffy dashed quickly up to the second floor. Reiner also put down his training equipment and headed to the living area's dining room with Zoro. Soon, they were all gathered around the table. Compared to the others who were eating heartily, Vivi and crew at the corner of the table seemed considerably more reserved. Nami, is our next stop Little Garden? Reiner couldn't help but ask. He couldn't remember if there were any other stops before Little Garden. After entering the Grand Line, Reiner's eagerness to acquire the templates of the Blue Ogre and Red Ogre grew even more urgent. Yes, Little Garden is correct, Nami replied. She had checked the sea charts before they set out. Luffy's eyes lit up. Little Garden? Sounds like an awesome place, Shishishi. It must be very beautiful, Nami added, looking forward to it. Reiner knew Nami's anticipation wouldn't last long. Elbaf is a renowned nation in the New World. It doesn't make sense for the leaders of the giant warrior pirates to not have hockey, Reiner suspected internally. At that moment, in Alabasta, a train base. Inside a luxuriously extravagant room, a man stood before a massive floor-to-ceiling window, a cigar clamped between his teeth. Tap tap, the crisp sound of high heels echoed in the empty room. You've returned, Miss All-Sunday, the man said in a deep voice, turning to look at the black-haired woman who had just entered. One of our bases at the entrance to the Grand Line has been destroyed. This is the intelligence report sent back by the Unluckies. The black-haired woman spoke, placing two photographs on the table, one depicted Vivi, the other Luffy. The person Mr. Five captured was Igaram in disguise. The real Princess Vivi has left with the Straw Hat pirate crew. And? The man's deep voice asked again. Their next stop is Little Garden. The Mr. 5 and Mr. 3 pairs have already been dispatched. And if they fail again this time? The man's tone was clearly displeased. I have also sent Mr. 2. He will handle the cleanup, and incidentally, execute those failures. As expected of Miss All-Sunday. Always so efficient in handling matters, Crocodile smirked, his voice low. Chapter 25, Giant Broggy. The next day dawned bright and clear as the Going Merry sailed on a calm sea. The weather's nice today. Nami gazed at the blue sea and sky, a rare smile gracing her lips. I didn't expect the Grand Line could have such good weather. You guys must have had a tough time entering the Grand Line, huh? Vivi, standing nearby, smiled knowingly. Right after crossing Reverse Mountain, that stretch of sea is affected by 7 different routes simultaneously, making it the most unpredictable. Vivi currently found it easiest to talk with Nami on the ship. She clearly hadn't quite adapted to the personalities of the rest of the crew yet. Crew, on the other hand, had already blended right in and was having a blast playing with them. Pair of aces. I only have one card left. Pair of twos. Declaring a pair. Luffy intercepted Reiner's play. Quack quack. Sound of crew playing a bomb. Quack. Sound of crew playing final card. Nice one, crew. Reiner couldn't help but praise crew, who had played a bomb hand to let him win against the landlord Luffy. A single 9. Game over. Quack. Having defeated landlord Luffy, Reiner and crew high-fived, wing-fived. In celebration. As for why a duck could play cards, heaven only knows. Damn it. Luffy grumbled and tagged Usopp in, running upstairs himself. Sanji. I want juice. Got it. Anyone else want something? I want booze. I want orange juice. Me too. No way. You guys are going to strip my tangerine trees bare. Nami refused, delivering 2 punches for emphasis. Watching the boisterous group, a long unseen smile appeared on Vivi's face. She had become accustomed to being constantly on edge since leaving home. This was the first time in years she had felt such a warm and joyful atmosphere. In Reiner's words, it was a feeling of relaxation. She began trying to interact more with the others, tiptoeing carefully behind Crew to observe how Reiner and the others played. Oh, it's Vivi. Want to give it a try? Playing card is really fun, Usopp invited. No, I don't understand how to play this, Vivi waved her hand dismissively in response. Come over here, little delinquent, Reiner beckoned. This happens to be a good hand. I'll teach you how to play. Think. Why do you call me little delinquent? Vivi asked, puzzled and slightly embarrassed. Hey, Reiner chuckled softly, directly pulling out the photo and placing it in front of Vivi. Well? Look good? Wahaha. Usopp collapsed laughing, pounding the floor with one hand. Reiner, when did you take that? Quack quack? Even Crew spread his wings and let out a loud quack towards the sky. The photo vividly captured Vivi standing on Crew, striking a pose with a supple waist and flourishing hands. Vivi's face flushed completely red. She lunged forward, trying to snatch it back. Give it back. Dame, no. Reiner simply placed a hand on Vivi's forehead, letting her flail her arms and grasp at empty air. Damn you. Give it up, little delinquent. Sanji emerged carrying juice. Seeing this scene, he instantly flew into a rage, flame seemingly burning above his head. Damn you, Reiner. How dare you bully my lovely Princess Vivi? Sanji's loyalties were always firm, always side with the beautiful woman. Whoops. Usopp, catch. Wait. How am I supposed to handle Sanji? Quick, throw it to Luffy. Bohahaha. Looks like fun. This ship really is something else. Watching the group rushing on deck, Nami smiled slightly and walked back into the cabin. Even the gloomiest person could cheer up after arriving here. 3 days passed like this. The Going Merry sailed through the sea as usual. On the crow's nest. Everyone. I see an island. Reiner shouted down, his gaze returning to the sight before him, a lush green island standing solitarily in the blue sea. An island frozen in prehistoric times, huh? A fervent glint flashed in Reiner's eyes. Besides coveting the bodies of the 2 giants, he had other expectations. As a kid, I always dreamed of riding dinosaurs. I never thought I'd actually get to see living prehistoric creatures in this life. Little Garden had an inland river connected directly to the sea. The Going Merry slowly sailed up the river into the island's interior. It was a tropical rainforest environment, dense forests cast layers of shadow, tangled vines snaked everywhere, and moss covered the riverside stones. The fresh air, mingled with the fragrance of soil, grass, and trees, was refreshing and invigorating. Melodious birdsong echoed sweetly. I smell adventure. Sanji, I want an adventure bendo. Luffy called back excitedly from his spot on the Merry's figurehead. Adventure bendo? Sanji was puzzled, that was a dish he'd never heard of. It's just meat, Reiner explained to Sanji with a laugh. A bendo box filled entirely with meat, no vegetables. Luffy's favorite. Absolutely not. Sanji's face turned green. As a chef, I must ensure your nutritional balance. Luffy, if you dare throw out the vegetables, I won't forgive you. Roar. What was that sound? Usopp and Nami shrank back in fear. On the riverbank, several giant forest wolves were licking the carcass of a fierce tiger. Seeing the approaching Going Merry, they all stared fiercely at the crew, yet seemed somewhat wary, lowering their bodies and slowly retreating into the forest shadows. That's terrifying. I'm absolutely not going ashore. It's hopeless. I've contracted the disease where I die if I set foot on land. Compared to the shivering Nami and Usopp, the others had already jumped off the ship, ready to explore. Even Vivi decided to go for a walk with Luffy. Zoro and Sanji planned to have a hunting contest to see who could bring back the bigger prey. A hunting contest? Sounds interesting. Count me in. Sure, Reiner. Let's make a bet while we're at it. How about 500,000 Bailey? Sanji casually tossed Reiner a cigarette. Reiner grinned upon hearing this. Hey, trying that, are you? Too small. Think bigger. Whoever loses has to wash their hair while doing a handstand tonight. Interesting. I accept, Zoro smirked, agreeing before heading off. Reiner dropped anchor, securing the Going Merry, then turned back to the 2 remaining on board with a smile. Are you sure you don't want to go for a walk? Staying cooped up on the ship for days must be boring. No way, no way. I'd rather die than go ashore. Isn't it possible that staying behind is actually the most dangerous option for you two? Reiner grinned strangely. Nami paused, then turned to look at Usopp. Their eyes met, and sudden realization dawned on both of them. The two weakest members staying here alone. Isn't that just waiting to die? Wait. Reiner, wait for us. Why don't leave us behind? Nami and Usopp yelled, rushing forward and desperately grabbing onto Reiner's arms, one on each side. Hey, the weakling trio's journey begins. Reiner chuckled softly, released several undead to guard the ship, and started their jungle adventure with the two clinging to him. However, they hadn't taken more than a few steps. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The crisp sound of rustling leaves came from deep within the primeval forest. A massive dark shadow suddenly materialized, effortlessly pushing aside several large trees in Reiner's path as if they were mere weeds. Reiner stared intently at the shadow, ready to summon his undead at a moment's notice. A huge face suddenly popped out, rough features split by a wide grin, a large yellow beard, messy hair spilling out from under a helmet. Monster. Panicked screams erupted from behind Reiner. Nami and Usopp immediately scrambled onto his back, clutching tightly to his clothes. A giant? That's insane, Reiner murmured in awe. Even so, actually seeing a giant still felt unbelievable. The big, yellow-bearded giant spoke with a booming laugh, "Gahahaha. Name's Bragi. Been a long time since this island had guests. Hey. Watch out behind you." Chapter 26, Uninvited Guests Roar. Just as Reiner's warning left his lips, a massive dinosaur charged out from behind Bragi, sinking its teeth into his rear end. Even Nami and Usopp couldn't help but cry out in concern upon seeing this. "Hey, mister. Are you okay?" However, Bragi remained laughing merrily. He turned, and with a swift rise and fall of his axe, casually chopped off the dinosaur's head. He then grinned and said, "Gahahaha. Perfect timing, food's arrived too. Let me treat you guys to a meal. Do you have any booze?" "We actually do have some." Reiner was stunned, not just by the giant's strength. More so, Bragi exuded a heroic, unrestrained aura that Reiner hadn't witnessed in anyone besides Luffy since arriving in this world. Quite the magnanimous spirit, mister. Reiner switched to a smile. "Gahahaha. I am a warrior of Elbaf, after all." Bragi laughed boisterously, thumping the shield hanging at his waist with his axe. Reiner enjoyed interacting with people like this, it was easy and straightforward. He smiled brightly. "Let us treat you to drinks then, mister." "Huh?" Nami, although letting her guard down somewhat, wasn't quite ready to make friends immediately upon meeting someone. Usopp, conversely, seemed to have inexplicably found courage, asking timidly, "Mister, are you from the legendary giant race?" "Ah, that's right. You know about us? I've read about you in storybooks. I just never thought you really existed." Usopp's voice gradually became smoother, a hint of excitement on his face. "Legends say the giant race is bold and unrestrained. Those are the kind of warriors I admire most. Since that's the case, let's go back to the ship and get the booze." Nami, Usopp. Reiner led the two back to the Going Merry and carried out several large wooden barrels of alcohol. Reiner hadn't bought this much back in Logetown. Zoro, having luckily obtained 2 fine swords for free, had saved the money Reiner gave him and spent it all on booze instead. "Let's leave these few barrels for that drunkard. Let's go." Leaving 3 barrels behind, Reiner and the others followed Bragi back to his base deep in the forest. Not long after the Straw Hat crew landed, Little Garden received 2 more uninvited guests. "Damn it. We actually grabbed the wrong person." A dark-skinned man with an afro hairstyle cursed resentfully. "And now we have to come all the way out to this shithole island." Hee, no need to be so angry, Mr. 5, Miss Valentine, wearing a short, hip-hugging skirt and sporting golden hair, giggled lightly. "They're just a few small-time pirates with a 30 million bounty. We'll clean them up quickly and head back." In the primeval forest, Mr. 5 strode forward in his black overcoat, while the skirt-clad woman behind him held a parasol with both hands behind her back, following closely with swaying hips. Soon, the two arrived leisurely at a house made of white wax, walking straight inside where someone was already waiting. "Mr. 3, you certainly seem relaxed." "Yo, isn't it the failed mission duo?" The man with a 3 shaped into his top-knot hairstyle leisurely sipped his coffee and spoke coolly. "This is my break time. We can discuss work matters after I finish this cup of coffee." Such a relaxed vibe, Reiner would surely have remarked, truly shows the bearing of a vice commander, had he been present. Mr. 5 didn't speak, waiting quietly until the other man finished his coffee before hearing Mr. 3 finally speak again. "I'm aware of the mission details. However, the Straw Hat crew isn't the main problem right now. Mr. 3 pulled out bounty posters from his coat, showing the faces of 2 giants. He continued, Straw Hat Luffy and his crew, with a highest bounty of nearly 30 million, have already made contact with Blue Ogre Dory and Red Ogre Broggy. That is the biggest problem. Bounties over 100 million. Miss Valentine slammed her hands on the table with a gasp. Mr. 5's brow furrowed deeply as well. Only Mr. 3, the wax man, remained completely unruffled, slowly dropping an even more shocking statement, and these bounty posters were issued 100 years ago. Silence fell in the wax-constructed room for a moment before Mr. 5's frown finally smoothed out. It's not like they're staying forever. Can't we just wait for them to leave before making our move? That's precisely the problem. Mr. 3 stood up from his chair and addressed the afro-haired man. The magnetic field on Little Garden takes 1 year for a log pose to set for the next island. The wax man paused, then added, I have 2 eternal poses on hand. Later, I will attempt to lure them into the forest and kill them. If they don't follow, I'll attack directly, then feign defeat and leave behind an eternal pose. I understand your meaning. A smirk appeared on Mr. 5's lips. As long as we don't involve those 2 giants, it's much easier to handle. Shall we set up an ambush in the forest? Do whatever you want. I can handle the Straw Hat crew myself. TCH. Arrogant bastard, the afro-haired man scoffed, then left with the skirt-clad woman. Returning to Reiner's group, at the center of Little Garden Island. 2 giant skeletons lay here, sparsely covered with moss and weeds, clearly having rested here for many long years. Below the massive white bones, Broggy grinned widely, holding a large wooden barrel of booze like a cup, downing half of it in one gulp. Reiner and the others had followed him here. Broggy roasted the dinosaur meat he had hunted upon meeting them, and they offered fine wine in return. They ate and chatted, Usopp listening with rapt attention to Broggy's tales of past adventures. Gahahaha. It's been too long since I had a drink. This is great. Hahaha, as long as you're happy, mister. Reiner raised his cup and took a hearty drink. This way, when I ask for your help later, I won't feel too awkward about it. Gahahaha, no problem. Tell me what you need. If I can help a friend, I'll naturally do my best. Then thank you in advance, mister. Reiner didn't beat around the bush. Dealing with straightforward people like Broggy, directness was the best approach, being roundabout would only backfire. He simply explained his ability to Broggy and stated his request to collect the giant's physical template. Gahahaha. Just that little thing? Nothing to be embarrassed about. Doesn't even require me to do anything. Broggy grinned, gulped down the remaining half-barrel of wine, and extended his hand towards Reiner. Go right ahead. Then I won't stand on ceremony, mister. Reiner immediately conjured the azure flame from his hand and placed it on Broggy's. Soon, the flame began to slowly creep up the giant's massive arm. Nami and Usopp watched with anticipation. They knew about and had witnessed Reiner's ability. If he could create such a powerful undead, the crew's combat strength would increase significantly. Ooh? This flame of yours is interesting. It's not hot at all, gahahaha. However, contrary to Broggy's laughter, Reiner's expression wasn't optimistic. Collection failed. Reiner frowned, looking at Broggy's enormous body. He could collect templates from those stronger than himself, but only up to a certain limit, not exceeding his own capabilities by too much. Yet, his current physical condition was already extraordinary. Although still considerably weaker than Broggy, it should have been barely sufficient. Why does it still feel like something's lacking? Thinking this, Reiner directly retracted the azure flame. What's wrong, Kid Reiner? Ah, no, it's nothing. Let me just try one more time. He prepared to directly activate his transformation state and try again. With the attribute boosts granted from his existing undead, it should be enough. Chapter 27, Hockey, a chance? Azure flame seeped out from Reiner's entire body. Just as he was preparing to enter his half-beast form, a colossal explosion from the distance interrupted him. Boom. The thunderclap-like sound was deafening, accompanied by the earth shaking violently, as if the island itself were a sleeping beast rousing from its slumber. The group couldn't help but stagger, and Reiner immediately halted his transformation. What's going on? What happened? Nami knelt, bracing herself with her hands on the ground. Gahahaha. The volcano's eruption is quite fierce this time. Broggy laughed heartily and stood up, his gaze fixed intently on the distant volcano that was suddenly spewing magma. Sorry, Kid Reiner, I've got some business to take care of. We can continue when I get back. Ah, no problem. Reiner gave a simple reply. He roughly knew what was happening. It was actually convenient to collect both giants' templates at once. Where are you going? Can we come along? Ah, sure you can. Broggy crouched down, placing his massive open palm on the ground, signaling for them to climb on. I'm off to settle a duel with an old friend, one that's been unfinished for 100 years. 100 years. Usopp gasped as he climbed onto the giant's palm. Broggy simply laughed and briefly explained, "Gahaha. Nothing strange about it. We giants live several times longer than you humans. That's not the point." Nami couldn't help but shout, asking, "Why? What kind of deep hatred could make you fight for 100 years? Why?" "I forgot." Gahaha. The group stood on Broggy's palm as he carried them towards the location of the other giant skeleton. Before leaving, Broggy also grabbed the remaining barrels of booze. From his explanation, they learned that another giant warrior lived on this island. For reasons lost to time, they began dueling here, using the eruption of the island's central volcano as the signal to begin battle. Then isn't there no reason to keep fighting anymore? Nami couldn't comprehend such behavior. "You just said he was your friend, didn't you? Even for giants, 100 years was undoubtedly a very long time." As Broggy spoke, he had already brought them to the dueling ground. Not far away, another giant figure came into view. "We may have forgotten the reason for the duel, but neither of us has forgotten the creed of Elbaf. We will fight until victory is decided. Because..." As if by tacit understanding, the moment the two giants saw each other, they exchanged smiles and simultaneously drew their weapons, roaring towards the heavens. "The gods of Elbaf will always favor the righteous side. Wah Elbaf!" Usopp cried out, tears streaming down his face. "Wahahaha Elbaf!" A familiar voice echoed from the other giant's shoulder. Reiner looked over and saw, sure enough, Luffy and Vivi standing on the shoulder of Blue Ogre Dory. "Hey, Luffy!" Luffy, excitedly perched on Dory's shoulder, heard the call and looked towards the sound, spotting the familiar figure with golden hair and a blue shirt. "Vivi, look! It's Reiner and the others." Luffy directly jumped down from Dory's shoulder with Vivi. "Hey! Reiner! Nami! Usopp!" Seeing the eager Luffy, Reiner also led Nami and Usopp down to regroup with them. "Reiner, what are you doing here?" Vivi asked, surprised. "Weren't you still having that hunting competition with Zoro and Sanji?" That stuff doesn't matter. Anyway, with me around, the ship never lacks food," Reiner replied nonchalantly. His fishmen undead were extremely fast swimmers. During sea voyages, he often sent them hunting in the ocean, ensuring a constant supply of fresh ingredients on the ship. It's just that eating seafood all the time gets boring. Occasionally hunting some mountain game provided a nice change of pace. "But didn't you guys make a bet?" Nami remembered. Reiner hadn't quite caught on yet. "Just a mere 500,000 Bailey. Consider it pocket money for them." "Oh, is that so? Are you sure your bet was 500,000 Bailey?" Hearing this, Reiner couldn't help but glance at Usopp, who was looking at him strangely. Holy crap. Reiner's face darkened. He had forgotten his own off-the-cuff wager. Damn it. Ha ha ha. Looks like someone will be demonstrating how to wash their hair while doing a handstand tonight. Don't speak too soon. Face still dark, Reiner waved his hand, releasing several dozen fishmen undead directly into the forest to search for prey, then turned his attention back elsewhere. He wasn't leaving, the giant's duel had already begun, and there were more important things to do afterward. Bang. Gahahaha. Didn't you eat breakfast, Dory? Bang. Gahahaha. Are you getting old, Broggy? The two giants, one wielding a shield and sword, the other a shield and axe, fought like fierce beasts. Words like savage, brutal, and violent perfectly described their simple, direct combat style. Every blow contained their full strength, every swing of their weapons generated intense wind pressure. Accompanied by forceful, clanging impacts, shockwaves rippled outwards from the center of the battlefield, flattening the surrounding trees like weeds. Such terrifying power. Reiner watched, secretly astounded. It wasn't just him, everyone observing was deeply shaken by the raw battle unfolding. The simplest sword swings and axe chops, wielded by them, displayed the most primal, heart-stirring aggression. Every seemingly ordinary attack carried years of accumulated skill, making the onlookers' blood boil with excitement. Onlookers did not include the two women. Honestly. They don't even remember why they're fighting, yet they still go at it like this. Exactly. I totally don't get it. Hearing this, Luffy and Usopp furiously transformed into keyboard warriors. What nonsense. What kind of talk is that? After quite a while. Gahahaha. Out of steam. Looks like another draw this time. The two giants, completely exhausted, sprawled out flat on their backs, staring up at the sky. Hey Dory. Look what I got. Broggy pushed himself up, grabbed a barrel of wine, and tossed it directly to Dory, laughing loudly. It's from our guests. Warwara. It's booze. Dory caught it, glanced at it with a laugh, tore off the lid, tilted his head back, and gulped down a huge mouthful. Gahahaha. Alcohol definitely tastes best after a fight. Seeing the battle end, Reiner and the others also approached, sitting down directly on nearby rocks. Cheers. Thanks, guests. Didn't expect to meet such hardy little people like you. Two giants, Reiner and his crew certainly qualified as little people. Luffy responded with a grin, Shishishi. Don't mention it, mister. Too bad Zoro and Sanji aren't here. Reiner looked at the two giants drinking before him, inexplicably reminded of George S. Patton and General Charles de Gaulle. Then, connecting some dots, he put down his cup and paused before asking, by the way, Mr. Broggy, can you guys use hockey? Hockey, huh? Haven't heard those words around here in many years, Broggy grinned. Why, you want to learn? Hey, Reiner chuckled internally, even a dog would want to learn hockey, let alone me. But hearing Broggy's words filled him with joy. Is there a chance? Ah, yes, we do know hockey. Chapter 28, Hockey, a chance? 2, fuck. It's really possible. Mr. Broggy. Can you tell me the training method? Reiner asked urgently, the burning eagerness in his eyes unconcealed, nor needing to be. Broggy, however, looked somewhat troubled, scratching his head. Although we've grasped it, we're not very proficient. As for teaching, the method might be a bit clumsy. Not proficient? Reiner was surprised. Elbaf was a giant kingdom renowned even in the New World. How could Dory and Broggy, as leaders of the giant warrior pirates, be unskilled in hockey? Dory spoke up, explaining, there are all sorts of strange ability users on the sea, which is why we learned hockey. But for other battles, we primarily rely on our physical bodies and skills. That's right. We warriors of Elbaf believe only in fist-to-flesh combat. Gahahaha. Broggy added. What kind of nonsense is that? Can't you fight fist-to-flesh with hockey? Reiner internally fumed. But then he looked up at the two rugged giants again. Alright, that's very giant-like. What? What are you guys talking about? Luffy tilted his head, looking utterly confused. The others, including Nami and Usopp, also looked baffled. Reiner gave them a simple explanation. But what is this clumsy method you mentioned? Reiner turned back to the giants, pressing further. Dory and Broggy glanced at each other, then suddenly threw their heads back and laughed. Gahahaha. That would be getting hit. Alright. You guys must have taught really, huh? Black lines formed over Reiner's head in exasperation. Of course, not just foolishly taking hits. Hockey is like. Broggy then began explaining to them. Knowing Luffy and the others had no concept of hockey, he elaborated further. Invisible armor? Luffy touched his chin, thought for a moment, then tilted his head. So hockey is just armor that isn't cool at all? Doing. Idiot. How can you interpret it like that? Nami administered her daily education to Luffy. I think I understand, more or less. Reiner nodded inwardly. But before diving into that, he wanted to try something else. Mister, let's continue what we were doing before. Ooh, you mean that? Come on then. Broggy immediately extended his hand. Reiner began transforming into his half-beast form. Azure flames gradually seeped from all over his body, floating on the surface before enveloping him entirely, dancing like wind. Two short red horns emerged from his forehead, and blood-colored markings spread from the bridge of his nose towards his ears. His body emanated a lifeless aura, like withered wood and dead ashes, heavy with the scent of death. Reiner's physical appearance didn't change drastically, but the dancing blue flames and the deathly aura gave him a profound sense of mortality. Bohahaha. Reiner transformed again. So cool. Luffy was inexplicably interested in anything that could transform. Hey Luffy, what's going on with Reiner? Besides Luffy, no one else present had seen Reiner transform before. Nami and the others didn't even fully understand the different types and abilities of devil fruits. Ah, Reiner's ability lets him transform. Damn it, I want that too. Luffy looked envious. Don't worry, you'll get yours too, Reiner thought, thinking of Luffy's future gears. However, even more shocked than the crew were Dory and Broggy. Both giants stared at Reiner with alarm. They weren't surprised by his ability itself, they had seen plenty of strange devil fruits before. It was because they sensed other familiar, yet unfamiliar, auras emanating from Reiner. Why do you? It's nothing strange, Dory. Broggy interrupted Dory, placing a hand on his shoulder. We've seen similar things before. The young folk have their own paths to walk. Let's not interfere too much. Ah, you're right. Gahahaha. What the hell? Reiner looked perplexed at the two giants acting strangely. Did my Necrolord Overlord or leak out? Ah, whatever. He once again placed his hand, covered in azure flames, on Broggy. This time, the process went smoothly without obstruction. Reiner guessed the initial failure was likely due to Brogy's own passive hockey presence. Even if not actively used, does hockey still interfere slightly with abilities? Reiner speculated. It took a full 20 minutes or so before Reiner finally retracted the Azure Flame. That was exhausting. What is this thing? Your ability? Dory asked, looking at the dancing blue flame in Reiner's hand. Reiner had no reservations and simply explained his ability to create undead, hoping Dory would help him out. Dory, being straightforward, readily agreed it was a small matter. Reiner didn't stand on ceremony and immediately covered Dory with the Azure Flame. This time, it took slightly less time, not because Dory was weaker than Brogy, but because Reiner's fruit had undergone further development, increasing the physical stat boost it provided. Yes, this brings us to Reiner's devil fruit development method. He didn't know about Parimsha or Logia types, but his own mythical beast type developed through continuously using its abilities and aligning himself with the corresponding form's nature. Reiner's devil fruit development wasn't complicated: continuously collect stronger templates and create stronger undead. Simple and crude, but effective. Plenty of people in the world had defied fate with a single devil fruit, especially some with bizarre Parimsha types. One more wouldn't make a difference. His advantage, however, was that mythical zones are still zones. The deeper the fruit's development, the greater the physical enhancement it provided. Unfortunately, apart from the huge initial boost upon eating the fruit, subsequent enhancements were smaller. That's why he maintained his habit of physical training. Only effort will not betray you, run. Marine hero Kobe. But that wasn't what he wanted to test right now. Reiner already had ideas for these two Azure Flames. Reverting to his human form, he focused his thoughts, and a void crack opened. Two undead figures, normal human size and dressed like Spartan warriors, stepped out. But they hadn't taken 2 steps before, crack. Snap. Figured they'd still burst? Reiner rubbed his chin, as if expecting this outcome. He had wanted to compress the undead size to gain greater agility. However, his current power level was still insufficient to compress these two giants down to human size. Their terrifying physical stats simply caused the undead forms to burst apart. This also indirectly proves how absurdly strong these two templates are. Reiner wasn't bothered. He summoned 2 more undead. This time, the emerging figures looked significantly different. They were slender, nearly 5 meters tall, each holding a round shield and a spear, with a greatsword strapped to their waist. At a glance, they looked like Spartan warriors. Except. A scream came from behind. Vivi covered her mouth, staring terrified at the 2 undead, clearly frightened. She had only seen Reiner's fishman undead before, which looked relatively friendly. Even Nami couldn't quite adapt, grimacing and cursing irritably. Damn it. Why do you always create such creepy things? Indeed, the 2 Spartan warriors had no skin, just 2 terrifying, grinning skulls. I can't help it. Reiner spread his hands helplessly. Wasn't the idea to shed unnecessary flesh to increase agility? If he could have compressed them further, he wouldn't have made them like this. He noted the long red and green cloths tied around their respective waists. Blue Ogre and Red Ogre. Guess I'll call these 2 by the Mister's nicknames from now on, Reiner said, dropping his cigarette butt and grinding it out. Finally time to test it. Let's see if you inherited hockey.